All right, good morning, folks. I want to welcome everybody. We've got a pretty big crowd this morning to the work session for the mayor and council for April the 12th. We have a significant agenda this morning, so we'll try to move through this as expeditiously as we can, but there are some items that are going to require a little more discussion this morning, so this will probably be one of our longer work sessions. Let me start this morning by recognizing Officer Batera, Christopher Batera. Are you here this morning, sir? Yes, sir. If you would come up, I'm going to ask Captain Shaddix to say a few words about you. We're going to recognize you today for 15 years of service with the city of Villa Rica. If y'all give him a hand, please.
So Chris Batera, 15 years.
There's a microphone. It'll help for the folks at home, especially. You're loud, but not all the way at home.
Okay. So Chris Batera, 15 years. He's been working for me in detectives for 13 years of his 15. I actually hired Chris as patrolman and brought him in and sent him to the academy when I was patrol captain. So I've been with him for the 15 years of his career. It's been a pleasure to watch him grow, to expand his knowledge, expand his skills. He's worked murders, he's worked rapes, he's worked kidnappings, child molestations, burglaries and thefts. He's actually become one of my better detectives and probably my best detective when it comes to interviews. Does a real good job, and I'm just so proud of him.
All right, thank you, sir. I can be. He couldn't be here tonight. That's why we're doing it early today. So we'll get another photo later if we need to.
Okay. I didn't want to block you, Mayor.
It's okay. You got it. All right. So next up, we've got Keep Carroll Beautiful. Martina Griffin, come on up here, ma'am. So you're going to talk to us a little bit about Litter Pickup Day on June 11th. Sunshine Ballou is here as well? Okay.
Yes, that's
all
right.
Ladies.
Sunshine is our long-term board member. So Sunshine actually is heading the litter program for the Carroll County City. So hopefully Sunshine will say a few words, and then I will fill in.
Here.
Okay, so Keep Carroll Beautiful obviously has been a long-standing organization. We're really wanting to reach out outside of Carrollton, and Villa Rica is one of our top towns that we really want to highlight. So we are going to start an initiative of a litter pickup in every town in Carroll County for 2022. We'd like the city of Villa Rica to consider just partnering with us and encouraging our social media posts and promoting for the community to get involved. June 11th, of course, is what we're shooting for. So we have a couple of other towns that we're going to hit first to try to get it promoted. And then beyond that, we want to do a contest. So the most volunteers that we get through this participation, we're going to do a beautification project. So whatever city or town has the most participation, that town will win a beautification project. So really all we're wanting is just to partner with the city of Villa Rica to get participants involved and get the community involved. Martina has also been working on supplying litter pickup supplies, so that way the people of Villa Rica can check out those supplies. They don't have to come to Carrollton to come get those. They can get them directly from the city of Villa Rica.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you want to say a couple of words.
Yes, I just wanted to add that we have a couple of active groups in Villa Rica that pick up trash on a quarterly basis. Our Adopt a Road program is where we sign up companies, organizations, civic clubs, or individuals that want to adopt a mile of a road. It's based on the Adopt a Highway DOT program, so we follow all the rules and have vests and trash grabbers and bag holders for the volunteers. So I believe we currently have 10 sets of those available in the Main Street office, so thank you so much for holding those here in Villa Rica. But we just wanted to make sure that with that one-time or annual event, the citywide cleanup, we can get some volunteers to sign up for the Adopt a Road program, because, and we have some materials for you guys too, we will leave them for you, but the trend is if the city or a community is taking care of their environment and picking up litter, people are more prone not to litter because it's more embarrassing if you see your neighbor's kids picking up trash on the side of the road. You're less likely to throw that trash out there. So the cleanups, signs, and events basically bring the litter down. And I know that Villa Rica is probably facing a little bit more of litter coming from the interstate and just anywhere where it's the main road through the town or a community, we see more roadside litter. So hopefully we can get a few more groups, maybe some civic clubs involved, and we can have 10, 15 groups in the next couple of years doing the litter pickups. So the thing that we would possibly ask from the city, we need a little bit of help putting up the signs. So we partner with the county, and the city of Carrollton is basically helping us install the sign. We provide the signage, so we provide the board that's a metal sign and the volunteer sign, but the post it's being mounted on and the labor to mount it, we typically get some help from the city and the county. So if you guys would be able to help us with that in the long term, that would be awesome.
Okay. All right. Sounds like really good work you're doing too. And I'll have you get that information that you've left here or that you
Yes.
have here to the city clerk.
Okay.
And then if you will coordinate with the city clerk and the city manager, we can,
Yep.
I'm pretty sure we can help you with those signs. Council, does anybody have any questions?
We also have a few posters because the e-recycling is coming up on the 30th. So the Villa Rica's location will be at the V-Plex.
Okay.
So we have your beautiful logo that we kind of snatched from the internet. So I apologize but I thought I would ask for forgiveness, not permission. But we put you guys on our poster. Our additional events are also listed on it. We are starting this week by introducing the first 2022 tire collection event. It's a free event for the public. You can bring up to 10 tires to the Carroll County Transfer Station.
Okay.
And all residents of Carroll County can, again, get 10 tires for free, dropped off, and they don't have to, they just leave them and go. Then the e-recycling is also a free event for people in the drop-off locations. I'm sorry, I had just one coffee this morning. The drop-off locations are in Villa Rica at the V-Plex and then Carrollton at the Southwire Complex. And then the third one coming up in about a month is the household hazardous waste when we recycle paint. And we typically get 5 gallons of paint for free, and then there's a small fee for any extras, but people get excited. They're cleaning up. Springtime is coming, so if you guys have any old paint, that will be held in Carrollton. But it's open to all residents of Carroll County, and we will not discriminate against the Douglas County of Villa Rica, the part of Villa Rica. So basically, all of the cities that are in Carroll County and the county residents can participate.
Well, I appreciate you adding that because this councilwoman down here was probably thinking all along, wait a minute, what about my folks?
Oh, no, I asked that question last time.
Okay. Well, listen, so all that information and the dates, because I see the paint and the tires on there, those are two really
Yes.
important
Yep.
events. So they're on that. So give that to the clerk. She'll get
Yes,
with
ma'am.
the PIO officer, and we'll make sure that information gets out, okay?
And if you guys ever have any questions about the tire recycling, the Georgia Department of, I think it's the EPD, so it's the Environmental Division. They have a grant that pays for up to $50,000 of fees for recycling tires. So all Georgia municipalities are eligible for this grant. So if you guys have issues with tires that you pick up from the side of the road, and I bet you do, you can also apply for that grant and have the fees and the transportation costs basically returned to the city. So that's how we fund our tire recycling, and I am trying to get that message to all of our cities as well, because you don't have to be a big county or a big metropolitan area to get that grant, and it pays for recycling the tires, the transportation, and just basically helps get them out of the environment.
All right,
So-
that's good information. All right, thank you. And for the record, I think you do just fine on 1 cup of coffee. All right, thank y'all.
I just wanted to mention too, just so
Okay.
you know, the litter pickup, it'll be from 9 to 12 on June the 11th is what we're planning on.
Is that on this?
I'm not sure if it's on there just yet, but just so, and if you want to understand what happens, we just show up, we have litter supplies, and then we get the community involved to come and pick up those supplies, and then we send them out into the community. And we encourage anyone to participate if they want to submit a road or an area that they feel like needs to be cleaned up. Feel free to reach out on our social media post and be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to B2, the CVB board appointment of Neville Bada. Is there any objection to making this a consent item number 1? All right. Let's move on to CVB Board Appointment B3, CVB Board Appointment Dan Christner. Is there any objection to making this consent number 3?
No objection.
All right, thank you. All right, B4, presentation and authorization to refinance the Public Facilities Authority's Series 2015 bond. Jennifer?
Yes.
And I understand we have a special guest for this?
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. Yes, Bill Johnston is here with us from Stevens Inc., and he will be discussing the asking for us to refund the 2015 series bonds due to the current market and have some cash flow savings. So he has a presentation, he can answer any questions, as well as there's a resolution that will authorize, if approved, would authorize staff and professional services to move forward with this refunding.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Come on in, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor and Council, it's good to see you, and thank you for
Get a
talking
little
to us.
closer to the mic,
That better?
a little bit, maybe lift it up.
Okay. How about that?
There you go, that sounds
Okay.
good.
If you would, there's a presentation before you, and let's go through that, a few pages. I'm Bill Johnston with a firm named Stevens Inc. I've worked with the city in the early 20s on a number of bond issues. Tom Barber and I have worked on quite a number of issues when he was at Fairburn, and I enjoy working with all of your professionals, and I'm very happy to be here now. If you would, let's take a look at the handout that you've been given, and we'll flip over to page 4, really 4 and 5. What we're asking authorization to proceed to do is refund your 2015 bond issue, which was a refunding of 2 prior issues in 2008 and 2009 for the financing and the construction of your wastewater treatment plant. The issue really was refunded in 2015. Interest rates have declined since that point to the point where where the bonds need to be refunded for some savings. I will also say we're in a period of rapidly rising interest rates in the past little bit, and I'll discuss that. Flip over to page 4. This is a bit of, I apologize for a bit of a busy page. One more on your screen there. But this kind of tells the tale, if you will. A lot of numbers, but let me walk you through it. We looked at refunding this issue a number of ways: on a fixed rate basis, in the public markets. The city has done a number of public bond issues, as was the 2015 issue. We looked at, that's really the second column. It says dated as of February the 28th. We looked at interest rates at that time to refund that issue in the public markets, and savings, cash flow savings, were right at $2,085,000. Within a month, at the end of March, interest rates had risen so much that that particular method, all the savings went away in 1 month. Not the greatest thing in the world. So we have looked at another alternative. Really, it's a converting interest rate method. To advance refund a bond issue, you have to do it on a taxable basis today. You can't advance one tax exempt as we used to. Tax laws have changed. But you can issue converting bonds, and that's what the 2 approaches that we're looking at the right-hand column, if you will. We solicited proposals from all of the firms that we place those issues with that do converting bond issues at this point in time. We received 2 bids, one from Zions Bank, another from Regions Bank. And again, these are dated as of the 30th of March. Really, the highest savings, if you will, was submitted by Regions Bank. And at that time, interest rates have risen since then. The gross savings was right around $3.5 million. So a considerable amount of money. The second bid, if you will, Zions Bank, It was a bit less, right at $2 million. And of course, in my industry, we always come up with a cute name for this, something that's new. And so we've in the industry, we've called these converting interest rate bonds Cinderella bonds. So not to be cute about it, but we have to come up with some smart name for something like that. But what we're asking you to do is proceed with this refunding. What will occur is we will solicit additional proposals from these particular firms to give us another interest rate. Again, interest rates have risen about 1/3 of a point since these numbers were presented at the first of the month. So savings will come down, but they will still be in a very, very good range. I would like to come back to you, hopefully with a Zoom call, so that y'all can approve that particular financing. We can lock the interest rates and proceed to a closing. And so that's what you're being asked to do. There's a lot of detail. I'll be happy to answer whatever level of detail or whatever questions you have.
Okay. Let me first get, Tom, you want to talk a little bit about this and the idea of coming up with this refinancing right now and sort of give us an idea of what this approach is about?
Sure.
Let's give him an opportunity to talk a little bit about it since it is coming from the city manager's office.
All right, so about a year ago or so, 8 months ago, we met for the first time to talk about a refi. The main motivation that we had as staff at that time was just to gain information and to look ahead, I thought, to 2025 or so, because that's would have been the 10-year point in this particular issue, the 2015 issue. And at that point, the some of the mechanics of refining get easier when you get through that first 10-year period with bonds that are callable and all that. And at that point in time, the savings just weren't there. But the way that you pay off and refinance something like this is you actually don't, the old bonds don't go away. You borrow money and you put it in escrow, and then you pay the old bonds off over time, and that escrow earns money. And what's happened in the last 8 months or so is that earning amount has improved dramatically. And that's one of the reasons this is making sense now. The other thing that we wanted to know when we met with Bill the first time was, what do we do looking ahead? Because if you remember the way that the 15 bonds were set up, there was a big jump in the payment in 2020. So when I first came on board, remember we raised the rates a couple of times in 18 and 19 to get ready for that big 20 jump in the bond payment from $1.7 million to $2.2 million a year. There's another one coming up in 2029 that we wanted to deal with. So that was the other thing we were looking at when we met with Bill the first time. So he calls us up about 6 weeks ago or so and says, hey, the numbers have gotten better. We need to look again. In 2020 hindsight, wish we could have just pulled the trigger right then, but you can't do it that way. There's a lot of work, and we got to go through council. So that's why we're here today. And it sounds to me like the longer we wait, the worse off we are. So we need to do this as quickly as we can.
Okay, because the reason I wanted him to do that is because when you're thinking about interest rates going up like they are and as fast as they are, and that's how you open, the initial response is, why in the world would you want to get in that? But the way these work is why it works that way. So, council, do you have any questions for Mr. Johnson?
Probably just maybe more of a clarification.
Ms.
I thought we
McPherson?
I thought we didn't have an option to do this until 2025. So I was happy to find out that we can, because
You did,
the wastewater plant's costing us a fortune.
I'll be quick. This is a long-winded answer. I'll answer it as quickly as I can. In the past, you could do advanced refundings of bond issues. The city's done a number of them over the years. The 2015 was an advanced refunding. Those rules changed in 2017 So if you're going to advance refunding something, it has to be done on a taxable basis now. And so that did slow down the number of issues that could be called. In this particular instance, interest rates at this particular point in time are such that these bonds can be advance refunded in advance of the call date. Typically, bonds can't be called for about 10 years. This one's exactly the same. We're just a few years away. September the 1st, 2024 is when those bonds can be called. So Tom nailed it just right. What will occur is the new bonds are issued. Those monies are placed in an invested escrow, and they pay the old bonds off between now and the call date, September 1st, 2024. And the city pays the new bond issue off, the lower interest rate bonds, and going forward, that's how you carry forward with your debt service.
Okay. Is there any other questions? All right, Mr. Carter?
We're working on a timeline here that daily is going to cause the rates to go up, or we have a window of opportunity.
Well, we have a window, and
Is it based on the Fed rate raising?
I would like to get ahead of that if that's possible. What I would like to do, and I spoke with your city attorney, is to coordinate with bond counsel, your city attorney, and your staff to get a refreshed bid. If it's a bid we like, we'll bring it back to you with a Zoom call meeting, because y'all have to approve the final interest rate. If it's acceptable to you, at that meeting, we'll lock the rate at that time, and it'll take about 30 to 45 days after that point, and those rates will hold to close the issue. But we will be ahead of the Federal Reserve meeting the first week in May, when I think there's going to be an interest rate increase then. So I want to get ahead of that.
Okay.
I'm concerned about an increase.
I guess what I'm getting at is, do we need a call meeting to get this done? It sounds like we need to expedite it.
We do need a call meeting. I can't tell you when that needs to be. I need to do some coordinating for us to have a call meeting.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
we like saving money, so the sooner the better.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Johnson? Okay, is there any objection to making this consent number 4? All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. All right, let's move on to B5, Punkintown Road discussion. I don't see how this got here. Who's taking this up? All right, Mr. Barber.
Back in January, during the council retreat, we talked about the current state of the plans that we had for Punkintown. And at that point in time, there were some pretty significant reservations about what we were proposing. In the 2 or 3 months that have passed, I've continued to work with the engineers from EXP on the design. We've also begun to integrate the access plans for the Fuquay development, which are at the top, the south end of the improvement area, to include those in what we're going to do, along with the traffic light improvements and left turn lanes and all that. And so I've asked the guys from EXP to come in so that we can talk again about what we feel like are the best approach to how we proceed. We are still in the concept phase of the design. We haven't really gotten into really serious engineering yet, because we don't feel like we've gotten a consensus about what we're doing. To make this more interesting, we have been talking with a potential developer of the southeast corner of the new roundabout intersection. So that is east of Punkintown, south of 61, There's some residential in there and a pretty good sized vacant lot. That lot they have under contract now, and they're working on some additional acquisition. That is the parcel through which the road would travel to tee into the new north bypass and the roundabout there. As they envision that, as we've worked with them, what they want to do is develop that with commercial retail on each side of the new road, and then 55 and up residential behind it, which again, right, fits into what we're trying to do to protect the school system from increased enrollment on that side. We're really at a point now where we're stuck, right? So what we need council to do today is either say, we like this, we hate this, do it this way, do it that way, or whatever, so that we can move ahead, because this project is part of the Fuquay project, right? We've got to have the traffic light, the turn lanes, all the access points on Punkintown built out, just like we've got to build out the Mirror Lake connector. So, guys, Dwayne and Ryan, y'all want to come up, and maybe Mark, if you want to come up too. So you remember that we brought Mark Teal along to help us manage some of this road work, and so he's been getting up to speed on some of our road issues. And Dwayne, I don't know, you going first? Or Mark, you want to?
Yeah, I've got some drawings that y'all can get to if you want to put one up on the screen. It's in color.
Yeah, can you put?
Come on up to the microphone a little
I'm sorry.
bit.
There's one that's
Where is it?
on the flash drive. I think you put them on the main. That's it. That's Punkintown. I'm Dwayne Comer. I work with EXP. Been a designer for many years. Retired from Department of Transportation, and do this now privately on the consultant side. We've got a alignment here, as you can see. I've actually, since Tom's seen it, added in some right-of-way, looking around 50 foot.
All right, let's stop for just a second.
Okay.
I need you to orient me on this and
Okay.
and everybody else. Could you
Can I
come?
walk up
I'll
here?
let you. Yeah, come up here and just try to get us oriented to start with, because I've never seen this graphic.
This is 61.
Okay, over by the hospital.
Yep.
All right.
It's Punkintown Road.
Okay, up by Dr. Woodall.
Yep.
Are y'all following? Yep. Okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Well, we got a handheld mic if we need it.
Okay.
Bring that
Right
up here.
here,
Alyssa.
this location right here is where the department's bypass is coming in.
Let them give you that, because people at home can't hear.
The bypass is coming in right here. There'll be a roundabout. I'm showing an intersection because the roundabout is not existing at this time.
Okay.
So I'm just showing a regular intersection, but the Department of Transportation will build, there's gonna be a roundabout here. And then, so your bypass traffic is gonna be coming to this point. So we're looking at bringing that traffic, if they come across down to here, get on Punkintown at this location. This is the first roundabout. I think the one that Tom
And
was
is that
talking
Old
about.
Stone Road there?
There's Old Stone Road right here.
Okay. All right.
And,
So past Old Stone.
yes, just, yeah. So you come down, you tie in here. We're using, I'm gonna go through it, then I wanna show you the typical that we're using to get this footprint.
That's fine.
So we're gonna put a roundabout at this location. It's gonna also tie in a driveway into the roundabout so that they don't have, that way they'll have easy access. We've got the old part of Punkintown coming in and tying to the roundabout also. That's one of those things that is a discussion topic point, because you really, you don't have to do this, because these people might prefer just being able to come out here and not getting into the, going this way. But we'll leave it, the way we got it. I think it's just a show. Like I said, it's conceptual. Anything can change. Then we're along the existing alignment, Old Stone Road, and then our next right here were these,
That's Chadwick Place? Mm-hmm. Okay.
and these line up. This kind of comes around. This ties together back here. Yeah.
Parkway Circle.
And the reason I show that, roundabouts can be difficult to build sometimes, and anytime you got like a wraparound when you're doing construction, it helps you flip-flop on the roundabout. But we'll put another roundabout here, and one of the reasons for roundabouts, where we can line those up, it's not only traffic moves well, it lets everybody get into the traffic circle, everybody can move. Also, when you enter a roundabout, everybody has to slow down, but you keep moving. But what that gives is these people that actually live along the roadway, there is slowdown, so you can get out of your driveway. And the way we did the right-of-way, I shifted the roadway left and right. I tried to minimize the impact to individual parcels. So I come across, I shifted to one side or the other. Then we get into the Fuquay property. They've got, this is it down here. We just extended that. They wanted to show this drive out here. We were stopping right here, but we did that much of an extension to make sure we had the turn lanes out here to facilitate their development in that location also. The right-of-way, I got to looking at, we're just looking at probably, depending on which side I shift to, from the center line is probably going to be around 50 feet. You've already got a good bit of right-of-way out there, but as you can see, based on which side I shift to, it kind of pulls even by any right-of-way off the opposite side. We're looking at, if you don't mind, flip to the typical section. It's on another drawing. Go back up one. Right there, typical. I'm sorry. One above it. Sorry, that's my fault. Yeah. What we're looking at, you got a lane in each direction. I think a center left turn lane is critical out there. It gives a person making a left into a driveway or into a roadway a point of refuge to where you're not sitting there, you're getting out of the flow of traffic. And it gives you that safety of people coming up behind you, the rear end accidents that happen. It pretty much eliminates those because you're getting out of the flow of traffic. That's why the center left turn lane is very important. The way I look at it, it's 7 more foot per side, pretty much, for that much safety that you gain out of getting that extra lane in there. And it helps. It really helps too if things do develop. You're not having to add width for somebody to come in there and put a turn lane. So you've got that out there. It's built, and it creates a safety. We're looking at a curb and gutter section, an urban section. It's in the city of Villa Rica. Right now, you've got a very rural section with not very wide shoulders, and this would be an urban section. We're looking at a sidewalk on one side because you got a trail that's coming, from the direction of the interstate down. You got that trail. We would at least want to put a sidewalk on that side to maintain that. And then we could look like the intersection at Fuquay, the light. Mm-hmm. That'll all be ped, peds and everything. So, people walking that can cross into that area, whatever develops there, whatever takes place there. So we just feel like it's a good, safe footprint. It gives you that urban look. But the main thing is to control the speeds. The roundabouts will do that, and the safety of the turn lanes, the curb. It gives a barrier for people that are walking. That's why we like to put curb out there. I was going to let Ryan come to here, but Ryan, just talk about the what we've seen with the roundabouts. In a traffic safety situation.
Let's make sure we use the microphone, okay?
Okay, yeah.
There's one over there, too.
The biggest thing about roundabouts is it really huge safety benefits. That's the first thing when you start talking about roundabouts. That's the first thing you're looking at. You're more or less taking away angle collisions, which classic T-bone collision that people talk about. So with roundabouts, by curving that road, by the way you turn into the intersection, the way you move through a roundabout, you take away those angle type T-bone type collisions at your intersections, greatly improving safety. In addition to just doing that, it reduces what we call conflict points. So simply put, less wrecks, and the wrecks that you do have are more rear end and less casualty causing crashes. So that's the biggest thing about roundabouts. The second thing out here is that roundabouts do a lot for speed control. As you move through a corridor, the more urban you can make it, which brings up to the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, that sort of thing, the slower people are going to go. And that's the general consensus. But your roundabouts add into that. They create an urban look, an urban feel, and it also slows speeds naturally because as you design those roundabouts, you're bringing speeds down to, I think, 26 miles per hour. I hope nobody will quote me on that. But 26 miles per hour as you come in and go around that roundabout. So you're entering and leaving, hopefully, at 26 miles per hour. So now you're not counting just on a speed limit that has to be enforced, and you have to have an officer out there to enforce it. You're counting also on the design of the roadway to get it done. So that's the second thing. The third thing I think of that really stands out on roundabouts are aesthetic value. I mean, these things are pretty. You've got a great, nice looking center in there that you can get. It just looks good coming through, can be maintained, and keep, so that's it.
That may be typical. That ain't what we've seen of late. But I do understand the idea. Thank you. All right.
Any questions?
We'll get to some questions in a minute. Mark, did you want to say anything before I get to some questions from the council?
I'll just reiterate what they've said. I mean, I've been working with cities and counties for 30-some odd years. Roundabouts are very effective traffic calming measures. They reduce congestion, accidents, and there's less maintenance than a traffic signal.
Okay, got you. All right, council, do you have any questions for any of these gentlemen?
I have a couple. I have
All
a
right,
few.
let's get Ms. McPherson
I'm
first.
sorry.
Okay, I know they're supposed to be pretty. But some of them, right, it's just the concrete. But I've seen the lovely ones. I'm more concerned with the slowdown of traffic and that sort of thing. Let me make sure I'm understanding this concept completely. There will be a sidewalk that runs the entire length of the road. Is that correct?
Conceptually, yes. We've shown it on one side. Y'all can hear me. We're showing it on one side. The other shoulder could facilitate a sidewalk also. We're just showing it on one side. You're probably going to wind up with, depending on how things develop out here, I've seen with development out there, with commercial development out there, that also increases your pedestrian movement because you got a lot of folks that live in this area. Whereas, before they're always jumping in a car, but if something's within a certain distance, you may be more likely to walk. So what we did when I went with the department, you always went out and wound up putting your sidewalks where the trail was beat down on the shoulder. You knew people was using it. So you wanted to make a safe place for them to walk. Both shoulders on that typical I showed you can facilitate a sidewalk. So you could have sidewalks on either side. We're just showing it on one side because we're trying to match that with the trail that's coming down, I guess would be, from the developed area, looking at this back to the east, back toward I-20, you've got a trail, and then it comes right into the last subdivision. What's the last road in the subdivision? I don't know if that's
Town Creek, which end of the road are you talking about?
Down here. Let me get up here.
Is it
Yes,
near
right
Old
here.
Stone?
Yeah, right here, you have a trail that's coming.
Yeah, shoreline.
You have a trail coming down through here.
Yeah,
Oh, from Publix.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So this trail's coming all the way to here now.
That's right.
So what we want to do is pick up and show that sidewalk here coming down. But what I'm saying is, depending on how it develops, we'll have the shoulder to build a sidewalk on either side. You could build it now, you can build it in the future. But you have that pad, once that shoulder's built on that typical, you've got a place to put a sidewalk. You don't
Okay.
have to go out there and
I understand.
smooth anything out,
Right.
it's there.
Because it doesn't make any sense to me to improve the road without including sidewalk. We should have
Can you go to the
sidewalks
typical-
everywhere
that
within
typical
city
section?
limits. So at the time that you're doing the road, seems to me that's the least expensive time to go ahead and do the other.
Can you see this typical section right here? Just
Walk
just
over
to
here.
make sure. See, this is your shoulder. When I say shoulder, this shoulder includes your curb out to here. What happens winds up, a lot of your utilities wind up getting put in this area because it's outside the roadway, so you got an area for utilities. Within that though, that's where you build your sidewalks. Because it's a shoulder that would be there just grass. anyway. So, and what I was saying is that that same sidewalk could be placed here. So you're ready, you could, as you move forward in time, if you wanted more sidewalks, or on both sides of the road, you've got a place to put them. You don't have to go out there and recreate a place to put the sidewalk.
Okay,
So you're
because
ready.
right now, except up on the Mirror Lake side, it's ditches, so it's hard for there to even be a walking path, you know, where it's trod down, like you said, it's where people walk. It's pretty crazy. You actually have to be in somebody's yard or in the water ditch, depending on if there's water or
And for
not.
safety,
Yeah.
the reason I recommend the curb and gutter, you have, I will not say a barrier, but there is a positive separation. You know, when you have a raised curb, people know they're getting on the shoulder. So it makes it safer. That, I won't put,
For the
I will not
pedestrians.
put sidewalks where I can at least have curb for the pedestrians, like here. You know, you've got to, you know, the road just isn't flat. People know, when you're running up on a curb. So that way, it puts these people out here. I'm not saying people will not run off the road, but it does create a lot safer situation.
Right.
And then the areas where you have the ditches, say this is the existing road. Well, your ditch is like right here. Well, we either going to take that water, there'll be pipes here, we'll run it longitudinally to go back into the existing ditches to take the water away from the roadway.
Okay.
So-
And is the turn lane, the center turn lane, is that in the entire length of the road?
Except for at the roundabouts. And if you'll
Correct,
see,
okay.
what we do is we bring it back down at the roundabouts because you got to eliminate the, people can't be in that lane. As you can see here, what happens, you go to a small raise, it's about 150 foot right here. So everywhere we come back to a roundabout, I wipe out the turn lane, because then people will be able to use here, you know, that's your left turn. Then you, say if you lived here, you know, and your driveway's right here.
It is, it actually is.
Close. Look, what I'm saying is, if you live here and you come out,
That's us, that's my
you
neighbor.
come out, when you come out now, you go right here and you have to make a left in that traffic to go this way. Well, now you'll come out, you'll enter the roundabout. You have
Oh,
nothing
absolutely.
coming against you.
Yeah, you don't
That-
have to sell me on the roundabout.
Okay.
And down here, these poor people are the ones that have the driveways
And-
that come out on this curve, so.
See, and what happens-
It's really dangerous for
And
them.
people, in your mind, you're thinking, I'm having to go a longer distance because I got to go around the roundabout. But the bottom line is, you're eliminating a left turn in front of traffic. That's what you're doing by going through a roundabout. And even for commercial, when roundabouts first started getting popular, biggest pushback, like I said, I'm district engineer in Carsville. I've done this for 30 years. The biggest pushback was commercial would say, it's hard for people to get to me. Say if you was here and somebody was coming this way, you know, you would think, you know, they're going by me, but the bottom line is, all they do is go around the roundabout
Yeah.
and they're back to you.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting used to using that, and it does eliminate that cross traffic, that left turn for everybody. So it does create, especially if you got an area that is developing, you know, having those roundabouts gives the people that turnaround without having to leave the roadway, back up into a driveway, whatever you may do. It creates a place to come back automatically.
That's Old Stone Road, so,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir, that one doesn't have a roundabout, maybe that'd be a problem. That's a
Well,
busy road.
what I'm gonna do here is we'll have a full functioning intersection with the left turn lane, you know, to let people get, at least got a place of refuge. You can look, it's just, the proximity gets close.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I know that this is a, you know, area that development can happen also. So, you know, those things we'll look at as we move forward.
I would have thought that roundabout should have been where Old Stone Road is.
The biggest part with this roundabout, though, is just that you wind up with all these different legs hitting at one spot, and that would make a very busy, difficult intersection. So that's something that, if the council wants to look at, I mean, that's something that we can really look at. Because, as you say, you know, the hospital's down here,
Yeah, that's a busy road.
so, and those are things that we can look at. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, show them how much of the proposed road is not primarily sitting on the existing road.
Um,
Is it just this section down here?
yeah, well, this is all new.
Yeah.
And then this is your old Pumpkin Town. Then you get in right here. It's hard to see unless I zoomed in, but right here, what it is your existing Pumpkin Town. Here we go. Your existing Pumpkin Town's over here, and I'm widening to that side. That's why the right-of-way's on that side. So I'll maintain this side, just put the curb and the shoulder on it, and push everything else back to, the new construction will be to that side. So your existing road is over here, all the way. We start crossing to the middle here, and then your existing road is on this side through here. And one of the reasons I did that, even at this subdivision, they have a very,
Sorry.
that's good, right here, a lot of, decoration, as I say, landscaping in this area. And since this is all new, I just thought, I felt like it'd be better, because this has got its own, watering systems and stuff in it right here. So we're on existing road, and then right here, it kind of crosses back over, as you can see, it picks up. So go back to the typical one more time, please. I'm sorry to split that before. Right here, I've got this drawing. That's what happens. Your existing road throughout the project will move from this side to this side, with this being your new construction as it moves back and forth. We're going to try our best to retain that existing profile as long as it meets the speed designs. It minimizes the change in people's yards and stuff, because, if you change the profile, then you're filling or cutting in people's yards, and you want to minimize that as much as possible.
Right. Okay, let me let Ms. McPherson ask one more question, then we'll get to Mr. Moptahan.
Yeah, sorry, that went longer. That went a little longer. So my other concern, if you'll put the whole road up, because I think this is a city manager proposal. Tom, you can tell me. This new section all here, okay, new. This is where we go down to Pumpkin Town, if I'm seeing this.
That's right, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, this
That's
is
all
Old
Pumpkin
Pumpkin Town to our,
Current
Current
round.
roundabout.
not rapid response G dot thing where we have the little roundabout, mini roundabout here. What is the purpose of routing, okay, and the other bypass is coming in,
Right there.
okay,
There's a roundabout up there.
There's gonna be a
explain to
roundabout there.
me,
Yeah.
yes, okay, because the, western or northern bypass is hooking in here that's
Yes.
coming off of 20. What is the purpose for building all this additional road if you aren't basically, without saying it, creating the eastern bypass? Why aren't
Well-
we going this way, since we're expecting the trucks off the highway to be taking over on the industrial side and coming up and entering from this side? Why are we running and building that additional road?
My point is your traffic, the traffic's coming to here. It's either gonna go to here and hit this road, or the people are going back that way anyway. To me, just as a moving traffic, you're just creating more jogs in your roadway. They're just gonna come to here. I feel like that is just a better flow of traffic, because, the amount of traffic that you look at that they're generating from this project that's coming to here, you've got to do something here. I mean, this right here is a straightforward, it's gonna be a roundabout, it's gonna slow people down and bring them over to here. You're gonna wind up with the same thing here, probably, but a lot more.
But that's a much smaller roundabout there.
Oh, yeah, it's just
That's
built.
the other issue.
It's
that
almost
you need
like
a
a-
larger roundabout.
It's a mini.
Yeah,
You have to have one to
big
accommodate the
roundabout.
this is
traffic.
gonna be a big roundabout here that they're building on the project on the bypass, and we're just
Well-
gonna tie it in.
It is a mini, but part of the reason is that was still part of the truck route. That will not be part of the truck route going forward, because they won't be coming through the center of town anymore. Right now, we still have trucks coming downtown, all down here, all out here, that's gonna be our road. And they're coming up through this way, okay? They're coming up to the approach of this mini. They shouldn't be coming up through here at all after that. And they really shouldn't be coming this way.
As you know, trucks are always gonna work toward the interstate. Whatever the best route is, they're gonna find it, and usually it's whatever the shortest route is.
Whatever the GPS is.
Yes, I mean, you're right. And for me looking at it, you're bringing all this traffic to here, GDOT is, with their bypass, and you're not doing anything with it. And it's probably gonna be an increased amount of traffic that's coming, up into here. right now, to this point. I think that traffic will, because you're bringing, all those people that are coming to here.
That's to get north, though. They're gonna plan to go north.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get all of
All
Paulding
right,
County.
let's
through
let
there.
Mr.
Okay.
Montana ask a question.
All right.
Okay, all right, so before I was a lawyer, I was a driving instructor. And the center left turn lanes that you're referring to, we taught our students that we called them suicide lanes. So I have concerns about that, especially if it's going to extend essentially the length of the road. It seems like that's kind of an older design, and that maybe newer designs are moving away from those quote suicide lanes. Is there something we can do as a more safer alternative to those? And if we do have to have them, maybe not extend them so far and break them up a little bit with some landscaping or something.
And we broke them up, like I said, you've got it through here, you got a center left turn. You can go back, we can go back to some type of a raised, separating the traffic. But in that, you also take on the fact that everybody will not be able to turn out. They'll have to go to a roundabout. So you do force the use of the roundabouts more when you do that.
Okay.
Because you got to put some, it's better to put some type of separation in there and just to have two lanes.
Right.
Side, just like you got now. But it does create, the reason we was looking at that was giving those people a place to make a left turn.
Okay.
Instead of sitting in traffic, you're sitting in traffic like you do now, and you got people coming up behind you.
Right.
Usually that's your bad wreck.
Right.
That
But you're,
person just don't notice that guy's making a left. And
yeah,
you get rear-ended.
you're exchanging the
50
rear ends
miles
though for the
Yes.
potential head-ons though, when
See,
you got the
but-
center line.
And these not being, like this one right here, they're not that long of center left turn lanes, because they don't go all the way to the roundabout. We got to wipe the center left turn lane out to go into the roundabout. So
Okay, so what's
they're
the, just
broken up.
ballpark, what's the distance on that, between those, on that
This
center
one
left
right
turn lane?
here, it's probably about 1,000 feet, maybe a little bit over 1,000 feet.
Okay, and by how many driveways would it, looks like it's serving the park, was it park? I can't remember
In
the name
this
of
one,
it.
you got, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 5 drives through here. See, right through here, you don't have as much because there's nothing on this side. There's no development on this side.
Right,
And there's not development right here in this corner.
okay,
Old Stone Road.
right,
So you don't have the same number of, but if you're looking at
right.
future growth, then, those folks is gonna come in here and put a driveway somewhere, or it might stay the same way it is, and you're good.
Yeah, I mean, because you're not supposed to enter into a shared turn lane like more than 300 feet anyway. So if you got 1,000 foot, I mean, that's about 700 feet. Somebody could technically, enter in too long and extend it. So, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to find, is there a way we can break some of those shared turn lanes up? If they're
Yes.
not serving existing driveways, and maybe put landscaping in so that way people
You
don't.
could come in here and put different types of raised median, kind of like you see some of the places where they got the R cuts where you can just make a left.
Right.
You can't drive through one of them.
Yeah,
know
I think
what I'm
they're,
saying? So-
yeah, I think GDOT's actually converting a couple of the intersections out on
We
61
doing
of
a lot
those.
of them. Before I retired, we was doing a lot of them.
Okay.
Had an intersection in a county. I won't name the county, north of here. We opened the road. We had, I think, 3 fatalities in the first 8 months.
Okay.
Of the road opening. We went in and put an R cut. That's been 4 years ago. We've not had a wreck there since. So
Yeah.
those things do, and I think what you're saying, but with that space in there though, that raised area in the middle, or the 14-foot flush, it does give you the ability to build things like that. Whereas if you don't have no space in there, then it's just,
Right.
you're sitting in the roadway.
So my next question then, and Councilwoman McPherson kind of touched on this, but I guess, so currently trucks are not permitted on Punkintown Road. Would the design of this road permit semi-truck traffic, or would they still be non-permitted? I mean, is the
That's
right-of-way length,
a
the lane
city,
length
Going
to be enough?
That's a city thing, but, trucks are gonna go where the GPS tells them.
Right, but
Knowing that these roundabouts are out here though, that's not gonna be as fast of a route.
sure.
going that way.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of my question. I mean, would the lane widths accommodate truck traffic, or are they going to pull down there and say, this is not a place I need to be, and try to find a way out? And
Lane width is not
eventually-
really, as you know, trucks will go down
Yeah.
9, 10, and 11 foot.
Right.
You know, so lane widths is not as much of that, but the this will not be like going through a through road.
Right.
It'll be, you know, you got roundabout, roundabout, roundabout. So you're going at a slower rate, and that does create, you know, decision making on somebody's part whether I want to drive a truck down through there.
Hopefully it does, hopefully.
But we can't make it where it's impossible because,
Right, yeah.
you know, you don't want to make anything you don't want to create an unsafe situation.
Right,
So,
because you also have to accommodate ambulances, fire trucks, and all
fire
that.
trucks,
So,
buses, everything.
right,
So
okay.
you're right there anyway. And these do. I worked on one that's 225 at north of Murray. You can look on Google. It's Carmel Road.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 4-way stop. We got fought on that roundabout heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And till we put it in, there was over a quarter mile, half-mile backups at all 4 legs because there was a high school, middle school, and a primary school down here.
Okay.
The traffic would back up, and when we put the roundabout in, traffic never stopped. I got a video of 16 buses making their movements, and nobody ever slowed down. They slowed down, but they never stopped.
Sure, sure.
So it eliminated the quarter mile backup.
Backup, yeah. And my last question actually might be for Tom. So since both endpoints of this proposal on the 61 side is like it's serving a potential new development, and then obviously on the other side it's serving the Fuquay, are we receiving any contribution from either side or both to assist in the construction of this? Whether it be right-of-way acquisition or some funding for help us carry this.
Yeah, the Fuquay end, no. That's what we plan to do with the SPLOST money, but the new end would be the developers.
Okay, so at least
Right, from the roundabout
up to 61.
To the new bypass.
Okay, so we're getting a contribution then. Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any other questions?
I have a question.
All right, Ms. McCoy.
Just to simplify. Okay, none of these are the little baby roundabout we have currently in existence. Okay. Okay.
Based on federal dollars.
Okay. The second thing is to truck traffic was, you said you can't make it impossible for them to come, but because we need emergency vehicles and stuff, but you can make it undesirable, maybe is a better word, or not the fastest route. Is this designed for the residents, or is this designed for commercial?
Me, it's a design for an urban area.
Okay.
Urban area, I'm sorry, an urban area, really and truly, when you get in an urban area, I look at, lower speeds.
Mm-hmm.
The curb and gutter gives you a tighter footprint. You're not going out there dropping a 6-to-1 slope, putting in a 4-foot flat bottom ditch and going back up. It's a tighter, I call it urban. Commercial, I will say that commercial, part of it just depends on how it grows. I will
Okay.
say when you build a new road or redo a road, it looks better, but it facilitates the traffic, but it does slow the traffic. So it does create a different environment out there. So whether you say that's commercial or residential folks like it too because it does facilitate the opportunity to have sidewalks,
Okay.
ped crossings and such as that. So
On that note, though, I drive that road a lot. Is there 14 feet to put, if you said 7 on each side, correct? That
Yeah.
would be a total of 14 feet. Is there this road has no shoulder at some point?
no, there will be some right-of-way required with or without the 14 feet because you're going in there, right now a lot of the slope goes down to ditches that are actually probably in people's yard. So it will be some right-of-way, the red lines, and I'll leave these drawings with y'all. Y'all can look at them later. I'll leave them with Tom. But this is just possible projected right-of-way. I put a 50-foot. And if you look, though, it's not a lot of right-of-way based on what you already own. We're talking like maybe 10 feet of right-of-way.
Okay.
And then, and we talked about it, if it goes out, it can be construction, because people will want to mow that anyway. It's their front yard. So either way, there will be right-of-way.
Okay.
It might be a little bit, that's why I said 7 foot. You might have 7 foot less out here, but there'll still be a need for some right of way to build the roadways.
Okay, and my last question is, you were saying about the 5 driveways. I know future development and stuff, but if there's just 1,000 feet to that roundabout,
You could-
couldn't they make a right, go the roundabout, and then
Yeah,
go
you could,
instead of having the
we,
median?
and Tom's asked us to look at both. That's why it's a
Okay.
concept. You could go in here, we could go in here and put a small, flushed, raised median,
Okay.
which does create, to me, in my mind, it creates some separation between the two lanes of traffic.
Okay. I just want to know my options, that's all.
Yeah,
I just wanted it
that's,
simplified a little.
And we can show different typicals, whatever you,
Okay.
you need to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all want to add anything else?
Just so we're clear, the city can designate any road as no trucks. So you can designate it as no trucks, put up no truck signs. Is that gonna stop them? No, but it will make it enforceable for law enforcement.
That's a good point. Okay, Tom, you started off this by saying that you needed some direction today, but there's no motion here. What are you asking for? Was this just a presentation?
How do we proceed?
Well, first, he just said that this was a conceptual drawing.
It is.
You're not asking
That-
for
that-
details
That's our recommendation.
as it is. But you don't have a motion here.
Nope.
All right. So, given the fact that you just had this extensive conversation back and forth on this presentation, you talked about a number of different things. Is there something that needs to be shared among the council now to Tom so that he can prepare a motion for later? Are you going to be good with what they've put up here and the answers that they've given you in terms of the conceptual and how they'll look at what they actually end up with based on your input? Or do you need to add something here to Tom that maybe we need to discuss? Who wants to go first? Anybody?
I'm ready.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
Okay, I like the center lane. You watch it in Bankhead even as you go down to Carrollton. And I don't know, maybe it's a suicide lane, but where I've seen it, it's what saves you from getting rear-ended and also from everybody backing up behind you and then trying to go around you. So I like that. The roundabouts, it'll slow it down. It'll help people get out of their driveways. Some people are in a much more precarious situation than getting out of our neighborhood. But there are people that came to me and go, I don't know how to get my kids out of the neighborhood safely on Pumpkin Town. To make a left turn across that lane. You either go in the ditch, you knock out the neighbor's mailbox to try to save yourself. I've got it down to a science. But if you put a, 17, 18, 19-year-old driver, it's a whole different thing. Or a senior citizen. I've almost stood out there and gotten my mom out years ago. Okay, so I like the center lane. The roundabouts are great. They move traffic. They slow everyone down. I do take very strong issue with the branch off to the side that's going off to the right there, because the people coming down from Paulding County that come in to go to the highway have no problem coming, now that we have a roundabout instead of stop signs, have no problem coming down there and going right up the road as is, except that the road will now have shoulders, it'll be safer. I believe that what we are doing there is doing nothing but further enabling trucks and basically creating the eastern bypass that was heavily rejected by the entire side of town over there. If you want to see a meeting in an elementary school packed with hundreds of people, that's what you do. You create the eastern bypass, and that's the reason that basically got shut down by GDOT. I like everything else I'm hearing.
All right.
Everything else except that.
So what your position would be is to continue the road up the existing Pumpkin Town path. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and everything else as is.
Maybe still include the roundabout?
Absolutely.
Okay, at that location, but do away with the leg. So, all right, so I'm gonna come back and try to take these up one at a time, if I can just hear from everybody first about their concerns, and then we'll see what we come out with. Mr. Carter, do you have anything?
I didn't quite understand this. Maybe include the roundabout. Which one we're talking about?
The one right past Old Stone Road, where they would, yes, you see where the mouse is moving?
Yeah.
She's saying, let's keep that, but the right-hand part take away and continue down the old Pumpkin Town path.
I would prefer to see the roundabout at the Old Stone Road intersection.
All right, let me write that down. So okay, I'm not going to get to her question. I'm just saying, so what you would like to do is see that roundabout.
Yeah, I have no
moved
problem-
back to the old Stone
I have no
section.
problem finishing Old Stone Road since we put
Okay.
in the mini roundabout anyway to accommodate it.
All right, anything else?
Nope.
All right, Mr. Montahan, do you have anything?
So, I don't, when it comes to whether we continue the leg or if we continue up to Punkintown, I really don't have a preference on that. I can see why they would want to do the leg, but, that's not my ward, so I'm not going to, I'll defer to the Councilwoman McPherson and her preferences there. But I do have concerns about the center turn lane. I think Councilwoman McCoy kind of hinted on this, but I think I would rather see the raised median or landscape median instead. And it's only 1,000 feet, and you just go between roundabout and roundabout. It's much safer to make a right turn into a driveway than it is to make a left turn anyway. So we would encourage right turns into these driveways. If we take out or do something else, though I like the idea of having that center raised median or that median, so if it does develop, then the developer can come in and use that existing right-of-way to install a right turn lane. So I like going ahead and acquiring that right-of-way. I do want to discourage truck traffic still there through truck traffic. So I understand that's a council. Ultimately, the council can put a sign up and put those restrictions in place. But if it comes to the design of this and there are design elements that could be used to discourage truck traffic, then I would like to implement those.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is that we, instead of having these center lanes, we have raised medians and then
Raise or
design
landscape.
Elements that would discourage truck traffic. All right, Ms. McCoy, do you have anything?
No, I'm on the same page as Councilman Montahan.
Okay. All right, so I want to let you, if you want to talk about it, if not, let these guys talk about why you are proposing that right-hand shift there, and why you would or would not prefer to have that go all the way up to finish out the Punkintown leg. Can you make that, one way or the other? If you're neutral, you're neutral. I'm not, but I need to get to a place where the council can make some kind of direction.
I just see, because we're not seeing that other part built there. And I just foresee myself as creating, there's going to be a roundabout there, so you will have that movement. But, what kind of, instead of those people being able to come on across, it's just taking out that jog in the roadway. Because those people, you got a pretty good volume of traffic on Punkintown anyway. So people are already getting there, and, we can either, that was my, one of my options is either close Old Punkintown Road at the roundabout, let those people just go out to this end, and facilitate the traffic coming straight across. If that's where they're going anyway, to me, it's an easier route. It's an easier, shoot across to there. You're just creating more, because 61 is it's a 2-lane roadway right now. It's pretty much just shoulders and commercial out there, no curb or anything. So that would just create that, to me, that path over to that roadway would be easier. But other than that, that's my main, not creating a bad situation right there where that new intersection is going to be. In that way, it just lines everything up to me. I know that when you look at it as far as people might be more likely to use it, I do see that. But I mean, that from an engineering side, that's just the way I, look at it from, as far as moving traffic around the city.
I do have
Okay.
a quick question for
Well,
you.
hang on just a second. So, Mark, did you want to say anything on this?
In my opinion, that leg needs to be installed and tied to where the new bypass is coming in. But ultimately, that's mayor and council's decision.
Okay. But do you have any pros and cons about why that's your professional opinion? You spent 30 years doing this.
Well, essentially, the traffic coming around the bypass, say they're going to Publix, somebody on that side of town, instead of making that jog, they just keep going straight. So depending on the amount of traffic, say that a lot of this develops in here in the future, so all that traffic, you're going to create a problem in that little jog section between the new bypass then you take a right, go to Punkintown, take a left. You could have issues in the future.
So I'm going to ask this question because this is what keeps going through my mind. That Punkintown roundabout just does not seem to be adequate. Is it better than what we had? By far.
Yes,
Leaps
sir.
and
It
bounds.
is.
It absolutely is. But I can only imagine that the amount of volume that comes from that new bypass is going to be significant. I'm not a traffic expert. That's why I'm asking you this. Are we going to get to a place, if we were to say today, go ahead and take off that leg, are we going to get to a place in 5 years where somebody says that was ignorant? We have to go back and do that now.
Yes, sir. I think eventually you're gonna have to do it.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mark.
sure.
All right, now, Ms. McCoy, did you want to ask, or you?
I think it got answered.
You got it? Okay. Did you want to do one more?
Yeah, I guess so. My first question, do we have a cost analysis of the difference between doing that leg versus extending, I guess, improving that area of Punkintown? And I guess going back to kind of what Mr. Teal just said, in 5 years from now, where that leg is currently at could be developed, and we may lose that opportunity to build that leg. If we're going to, in 5 years from now, we're going to say we should have built it. And I think that might be, is that fair assessment?
Yes, sir. That's fair.
Okay.
Okay. Did you want to add anything? You got a look on your face. When
No,
I can
that
see
look-
you, I tend to
That
know.
look may stay there.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
there's going to be a lot more traffic at the roundabout that's coming in by Stockmar. There's going to be a lot more traffic because it is the northern bypass to get from 20 to go north on Dallas Highway. That does not require those people, other than the citizens that are coming out of Paulding County, that does not require them to come down to the Punkintown intersection. They can get right on that north bypass and go to 20. Now, I'm very happy that we have a lot of cars come down Punkintown Road and go to McDonald's and Publix and spend their money as they're passing through us, getting off the highway, going home. It is the trucks and things like that that are the issue. Yes, it will be a lot busier. It's going to be a lot busier because of the bypass that's taking them north off of 20. I don't get what that has. So I get the words, but I don't see the way the arguments play out practically on the ground. And maybe that would help with having diagrams and pictures.
Okay,
But
all right. So let me now take up Old Stone Road roundabout. Well, Mr. Carter.
Yeah, one other question. This design, does it accommodate semi-trucks? Or can semi-trucks run through these roundabouts? Because I know the one that we put in, the Mini, they had trouble with it.
It will accommodate them. I'm sorry. It will accommodate them because you don't want to create a situation, because you got to accommodate buses, fire trucks,
So that
everything
means
else.
that the truck traffic going to I-20 is going to probably take this route to I-20.
Yes.
Yeah, I would not say they
There's
wouldn't.
no reason to think they wouldn't if you didn't do the leg, though, I think is also the argument. It's just the leg is probably going to be more safe. But let me get to the Old Stone Roundabout piece Mr. Carter was concerned about. Is it possible, and I think you already said it's kind of possible, but talk to us a little bit about why you moved that roundabout down as opposed to going ahead and tying it in there at Old Stone.
Well, one of the reasons, where we got it now, because it will facilitate tying into Punkintown Road and gathering all that traffic, and putting a roundabout there would be better than having a T intersection.
Okay.
But I'm not saying that it'd be impossible to have one at Old Stone Road. Now,
Yes.
there is a cost. He asked about cost.
Okay.
If you we can run a cost analysis. You just got, new roadway there, but you still would build that same footprint on the existing Punkintown Road. So the cost would be a little less, but it wouldn't be a lot because you're still building that same footprint. You see what I'm saying? You'd still building the
But
same
tell
thing.
me if there is a benefit, in your opinion, as the professional here, to moving it where you currently have it, as opposed to putting it back at Old Stone Road. Because I have to tell you, I'm also asking why we didn't go ahead and tie in there.
Well-
Because- go ahead.
Tying,
At Old Stone.
you talking
With
about
that
the leg?
second roundabout. No, not the leg.
Okay, because I got to tie that, the way it is, I got to tie that leg in somewhere.
Sure.
So, but that does not mean you cannot have a roundabout at Old Stone Road.
But are you talking about two?
To the roundabout.
Yeah, I mean, you could have another roundabout.
Well, I'm not talking about another one. Why wouldn't we move that one back to Old Stone Road?
You've got 5 legs in there.
I understand that.
It'd be bringing-
I want him to say
it'd
it.
be- It would be the intersection, would be a very busy intersection here.
Okay, so that's why you're not back at Old Stone Road.
No, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I'm sorry, but I'm not saying you could not have one still.
No, I understand what you're saying, but
Okay.
I'm trying to get to a consensus here where we can give some kind of direction.
Yeah,
And if you
I
don't
want-
give me the pros and cons, I have a hard time getting there.
At Old Stone to start with, and they moved it. You've got, if you build the new road and you've got Town Creek neighborhood and you got both sides of the existing Punkintown and the driveway, you got 5 legs going in there, and without the roundabout, that was their argument, is without the roundabout, that 5-legged intersection doesn't work good.
Right.
That's right. So if you move the roundabout to Oldstown and take out the leg, we'll be okay. Because then it
Okay.
would be, the whole reason it's in the location
All right.
it is because of that leg. But no,
All
no.
Okay.
I'm speaking, and I realize that you have an agenda here because I can
I
tell
do, 'cause I gotta
the
keep
leading
moving.
argument, because you're the experts, but we are also the policymakers. And really, I do appreciate.
All right, so listen.
I appreciate that.
We're gonna
No,
move on.
excuse me.
Ms. McPherson, we're
Excuse
gonna move
me.
on.
No,
So
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna go
no,
ahead and-
no. This is going to stop Gil
Ms.
McDougal.
McPherson, you're out of order.
No, this
All right,
is
you're
going
out
to
of order.
stop. No, this has been going on for
Ms. McPherson,
well over. No,
I have to
I
move
will,
on.
We will, but I will finish my sentence.
Ms. McPherson.
I will finish my sentence.
well,
So
finish
thank
your
you,
sentence.
gentlemen. I very much appreciate your expertise. I take it and consider it. I want to hear again from the city manager because he had design. I realize I have passions about this. But I also do have the right to be heard, and I will be, and this is going to stop
Oh,
moving
my
forward.
goodness.
Thank
Ms.
you.
McPherson,
No, this is not the first time.
we've allowed you to,
I'm
you've said
done.
everything you needed to say.
I'm done.
Good. My goodness. So what we're trying to do here is come to a consensus to give to the city manager so he can get to getting his job done. So we have a proposal to do away with the leg completely and continue on the old footprint of Punkintown Road. And we had a proposal to look at moving that second roundabout down to Old Stone Road. Mr. Carter, you still want that somehow included, or are you good with their explanation?
I believe either Old Stone needs to be connected to that roundabout where they put it in some manner. I think it should have been part of this situation here. You've got traffic trying to turn on to Old Stone, yet traffic coming off Old Stone, turning on to Pumpkintown.
Okay, so would your direction be that they make an effort to tie that into Old Stone Road if possible?
Yes.
Okay. And then with regard to getting rid of the center lanes and the raised medians, would it be okay with the two of you, I guess, and if anybody else has any objections, to say that where possible, eliminate the center lanes and put in the raised medians? Does that work?
Yeah, that works.
Because I don't see how we can give direction because we are the experts here. So now, in terms of the branch off from that roundabout up to 61, which is a new roadway completely, we need to take a vote. Well, Mr. Macklin, how do we do that here? How do I get a consensus for direction on that?
Just by talking it out and having Tom figure out what the consensus is. I mean,
Okay.
if you're gonna
So
take-
you've heard the arguments, Mr. Barber. So I don't know really how to get you some kind of a consensus up here without asking everybody. So I could do that. You want me to try that, Mr. Macklin? All right, Ms. McPherson, to eliminating the leg and going on the old footprint of Punkintown Road, would you be a yes or a no? Eliminate the leg and go on the old footprint.
I believe I would be a yay, but I'd still like to hear from the city manager because I've been watching his concern with some of the things we're doing. I'd like to hear his opinion.
Mr. Barber,
too.
do you have anything to add before I do this? Okay, Mr. Carter, would you be a yes or a no on eliminating the new road leg and going on the old footprint?
Well, I do like the idea of joining Pumpkintown to the intersection of the North Bypass. So I'm not in favor of completely eliminating that leg. I would like to hear from Mr. Barber also,
Okay.
because it was his original suggestion.
Yes, sir.
On
All
this.
right. Mr. Momtahan, same
So-
question.
So I don't think I can make the decision on whether or not to eliminate the leg in working with Punkintown because we don't have a proposal of a concept of what Punkintown will look like. We just have what the leg would look like. So, and I don't want to drag this out, but until we see we can do a comparison one-on-one, I can't just say I'm in favor of X when I haven't seen what Y and Z look like.
Okay, Ms. McCoy, same question.
Okay, actually, to do this succinctly, actually, I'm indifferent to the way it goes, but because that's not my ward. I don't feel like I should make that decision, but if looking at it, to me, the leg makes more engineering sense and more logical sense, but I don't know how that's gonna go in a people sense. So from an engineering perspective, yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense
Okay.
than going down to the old Punkintown Road. And my only question is, where does that come out on 61?
Right there.
Where is,
That's hard to.
like, is that by Stockmar?
No, it's
Is
not that far
Stockmar
down.
up there?
It's
Yeah.
south of Stockmar, just north of the new Pumptown Road. It's
Okay.
the existing.
I mean, that's
Pumptown
probably
Road.
about 800, 700 feet.
Okay, so how many that dirt road is?
No, it's not. That.
Okay.
It's not far at all from the existing
Okay.
Punkintown Road. I mean, we're talking a couple hundred yards.
And then
How
on that
far?
note, like, if that's not that far, wouldn't that, you said we could add it, but if you add a roundabout at Old Stone Road, wouldn't it feel like you're just kind of going in a circle?
We just go
Like,
through this
that doesn't look like that's 100 feet, if
Oh,
that.
that's about
Like,
probably,
here, between this and this, that doesn't
yeah, it's
look.
probably about same, that's probably about 600, 700 feet. Now, I know that that's about 2, 4, it's about 500 feet, maybe
Okay.
600 feet.
Okay. All right, that's it.
So the answer though is that you're indifferent to the leg.
I'm indifferent. I think engineering wise, it makes a lot more sense to go
All
up
right,
the leg.
Mr. Barber, do you want to weigh in on this? So let me say up front, I don't have an agenda about this. I'm looking at this and simply saying what makes sense to me. I wasn't part of this discussion. I didn't meet with any of you all. You all did this work, and this is the very first time I've ever seen this. When I'm thinking about the amount of traffic and the amount of development that's going to occur out there, it seems to me that the traffic is going to be significant. And if it's going to be significant, whether we do this now or whether we do it later, we're going to end up having to do this. You're not going to create this where you can't get buses and fire trucks down here, which means that these trucks are going to use this path whether we like it or not. We'll do everything we can from a law enforcement standpoint. We'll have these roundabouts to slow traffic down, but we are not going to 100% eliminate them. We've tried many ways to eliminate them from crossing the railroad tracks at Cheeves. Guess what? They still do it, and they still get stuck over there. But let me see if Mr. Barber wants to talk about this a little bit.
And excuse me,
Oh,
would you also, when you're talking about it, talk about that center lane issue too? I'd like to hear a little bit more about your concept related to how it's designed currently, the proposal.
When we began working on this, the number one issue is that we believe that Punkintown, as it's currently constructed, is unsafe. The second thing that we considered is that when we were taking a look at reducing the speed limits, what we were told by GDOT was that the speed limit signs themselves were not consequential. That behavior was based on how safe somebody felt on the road, and that whether we raised the limit, lowered the limit, or kept the limit where it was, that people were basically going to drive the way they were going to drive. And so what that said to me was that I had to tell the engineers, Dwayne and Ryan, that they had to make the road physically safer. So it was their job to change the behavior. And their two recommendations were curb and gutter and the roundabouts to change the behavior. Now, from the very beginning, like the first time I ever looked at this 4.5 years ago, this looks like a truck route to me. On that side of town, there's not an alternative if you're driving a truck. If you're at the Pilot and you're going to Paulding County, this is the way to go. And if GPS takes you some other way, it's a miracle. But I understand that the community that lives out there would prefer not to have truck traffic. So if there's a way to resolve those two other than making this a truck route, then somebody's going to have to show me, because I've looked at it for 4 years and I don't see another truck route. So it may be that what we want to do is redesign or come up with whatever the tweaks are to this or the changes, and then have a series of public meetings before we proceed with actually doing the engineering. But the truck issue on this side of town is not going away, and I don't see anywhere else for it to go. There's nothing about what we're doing in the TAD that's going to make this better. There's nothing about truck traffic rerouting contemplated in the TAD. What we're doing in the TAD is purely residential and commercial retail. It's not related to trucks. So trucks are not going to start taking Cleghorn to Mirror Lake Connector up to Old Stone. That's not going to happen. We're not helping any of that with what we're doing in the TAD. So from my perspective, if we don't build the leg, but we build that roundabout and we spend the money to upgrade all of Punkintown out to the mini roundabout, it doesn't feel like a good use of money. That last piece in front of the cemetery and in front of the Woodalls, that doesn't feel like a good use of money to me. And if we can get the developer to build the new leg, then all we've got to do is build from the roundabout down to Fuquay, which I think we can do. And even that's going to be difficult because we are taking some right of way, and some of those houses' front yards are going to be impacted, and that's always significant. I mean, it may not feel like a big deal today because we're not face to face with a homeowner that's losing 10 feet of their front yard. But when you have those conversations, that becomes significant, and we're going to have a number of those. I don't know, Brian, do we know that how many houses we're impacting?
I don't have a number.
Is it 10?
Yeah, 10 and actual physically, just
Two-
the ones right at the roundabout.
2 houses are being completely acquired and demolished. So when we did this, we tried to minimize the impact on the neighborhood, because if you remember the original plan back in the day, the proposed route and the existing route didn't sit on top of each other. It departed up near the tennis courts and moved east and north or something, whatever that is, and went through any number of houses that were going to have to be acquired. So this is much less disruptive. And if there's a way to make it even less disruptive, we would do it. We just don't see it. So
What about the center lane? Islands or?
the new bypasses are going to have a single lane in each direction with a center turn lane. And so this would mimic that. So if we want to do a median intermittently with left turn lanes, we could do that too, where you don't have long stretches of median. But we haven't even talked about that.
Yeah, and Tom's defense, I did look at the raised median, and in that longest stretch, I was just looking at the, that was one of my reasonings, right outside the roundabouts, those people would be, they'd be forced to make a right out, and once you get, and I'm gonna say east of the last roundabout, those folks would have to go somewhere and turn around. That would be, why I wanted to leave an open, and if you put a raised median, they're not making a left. So, in Tom's defense, I looked at both of them. I stuck with this one a little bit more, but, we can revisit that with the raised median, at y'all's request.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Tom, you just kind of said we mimicked the bypass, and we know that the bypass is a truck route. So the idea of mimicking the bypass with the center turn lane is not, kind of goes against what I'm saying, is I want to discourage the trucks, whether it's, regardless of whether the leg or not. But my point is I want to discourage the trucks. So I want a design element in there that does not mimic what we know to be a truck route like the bypass is. That's just my thoughts on that.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Just to address the truck issue also, if they come out of Pilot, and as someone who drives an RV and talks to the local truckers, and so an RV, often we need to be on the same type of roads that trucks are on because we can't get around on those little roads in neighborhood. If they come out of Pilot or whatever and they get onto 20, they drive 1 mile, or is it 2 miles, to the northern bypass. Now, they can either decide to come down, and I'm going to go by Publix, and I'm going to go by the Fuquay development and the roundabout, whatever we're going to have there, then down these roundabouts, another one. It's still the shorter one. Or I can get on I-20 and maybe take another minute or two and get right on the north bypass and head north on Dallas Highway. And if they're coming down south from Dallas, like they do now, through the center of town, but then they'll have the bypass. Yes, it might take them 2 more minutes to get to 20, but it's going to be designed, built for, or they can make that left and come up and go around the roundabouts and deal with the traffic, get behind the school bus, and that's what we want to discourage.
Okay.
Mr. Carter.
All right. Okay, the truckers are not gonna make that decision. They're gonna look at their GPS. The GPS is gonna take them down Pumpkintown Road. That's just the way it's working. That's the reason some of them come down the Edge Road thinking they can turn into the truck stop. They don't ignore the signs that say truck stop straight ahead, entrance. We end up with them on Edge Road. So it's gonna be the GPS, and we can't control that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Carter, because.
1 minute, I
Oh,
promise,
all
I
right.
promise, 1 minute. Okay, so the local truckers, I talked to a few of them, and I forgot this, and I apologize that I had to interject again. When they're getting off of 20 where they are right now, so the reason their GPS is taking them that way is because they're not using a trucker GPS, because a trucker GPS would not take them that way. So we can wave the white flag and put up with it, or we can fight it and we can do something about it. I've had a local trucker tell me if we would put proper signage big enough and telling them where to route, even to 78, that they would do it. I have brought that information to City Hall, that there's a trucker willing to talk to them about how we could do it better, and I've gotten 0 response. So we need to do everything we can. We have not done everything we can to get trucks off that road. Thank you.
Okay, on the big signs.
All right, Mr.
One
Carter.
last part. On the big signs, they made a big sign out there that said truck entrance straight ahead. Half the trucks, at least once a week, one truck ignores that sign and turns on the Edge Road, and that's why we have them turning around in the middle of Edge Road or backing up into my yard trying to turn around. They go wherever they can. They end up going down Spring Road. Some of them cut across and end up going down Spring Road trying to get out of there. They don't read the signs.
Okay, all right. So I don't envy you for 1 second. But what is ultimately going to happen is you're going to have to draw up a motion, and you're going to have to make it specific, and you're going to have to include enough images so that the council can take a look at what it looks like after that, and then we're going to vote on it, because that is the only way that I can get this done.
And maybe not get it the
Because-
day before or the day of.
Well, and in fairness, I do want all this, Alyssa, all these documents that you all have been putting up here today are not in the packet. I want all that, I wanted all of it in the packet, number one. But we'll get that stuff, and we'll get a motion together on this, because there are passions that are really high here, and but at the end of the day, we have to make the very best decisions for this city that we can. Not each little ward, we have to do what's best for the entire city. And it's not going to do any good to shout or talk the longest or say that somebody has an agenda. At the end of the day, we have to do what is best for this city. So I want that motion put together, and we're going to vote on it. And I know some people will vote yes, some people will vote no, but at the end of the day, we've got to move this city forward. We've been talking about Punkintown Road for years. It is dangerous. We've been dealing with people who've been seriously injured out there. We've allocated $4 million in SPLOST money to upgrade that road because it is dangerous. There are a lot of things that have to happen over there and a lot more considerations than whether or not you're inconvenienced. At the end of the day, I haven't seen where trucks have listened to any signs that have been put up. I am not opposed to signs. We put them everywhere. Make them flash. I don't care. But at the end of the day, that has not changed one pattern of behavior of trucks in this community. All right. So, guys, I'm not going to have an answer for you today. But I think we've gotten a good discussion out here, and the city manager can work on putting together a motion for that. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. All right. Let's move on to B6, Butterball's environmental discussion. I believe this was requested by Councilwoman McPherson, so I'll let her open up with this.
It'll be quick, you'll be happy to know, because I really don't have anything to say about this other than Butterballs gets talked about because the city owns it. It has sat there for years. I hope we're going to redevelop that, but at this point, there were tests done. Information has come out recently about how much did we spend now that we're going to demolish it. So that's some controversy about, what do you mean? We spent money and now you're going to demolish the building. So it came up in the public, it came up in the media, and there was a particular citizen that seemed to have some background in environmentals. And if we did there's charges made by a lot of people that don't really know. They're just saying, oh, there's bad things in the ground, the social media stuff. But then there's people that sound like they know their stuff about what needs to be done, either should have or should in the future before it can be redeveloped. I sent that information to the city manager and assistant city manager on what somebody was saying about the environmentals and making comments about the studies that were done. What do you call those? Because we had to hire a consultant, somebody to, and they were commenting on the actual phase 1 and phase 2 studies. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm not an environmental person. I don't know how those studies are done. That's why we have to hire people. And my only question was, are we okay over there? Or do we have to do something else to make sure that area is clean? Because something is going to happen there eventually. And that's it. I just want city staff to let us know if we need to do something else to clean it up or not.
Well, so I looked through this stuff, but this stuff is not new. We got this stuff, or at least I saw it after the fact. I wasn't on the council when any of this stuff was done with Butterballs. I wasn't here when it was, when any of the funding was provided to the DDA or the purchase or the transfer or the forgiveness on the taxes or any of that. So, but subsequent to getting elected to the city council, I did get a lot of this information. I went to the city manager then, who was a previous city manager, told me that all of this stuff had been looked at and there were no issues with it. So my concern here, and I'll let you speak, Tom, if you have something, my concern here is we're right on the edge of demolishing this building and closing a chapter that has been back and forth, and now it looks like I'm being presented with something else to do here before we can do that. So what do we need to do here, Tom? What is the question?
I think the safe thing to do before we move ahead with the demolition is to have a different firm look at what got done back in the day, on whatever year that was, and then go based on what they say.
Okay. So
We'll have to have somebody else look at it.
I understand that. So that looks like we're going to now delay this again for many months while that building stands there. There's no motion in here. Are you asking for direction from the council to spend that money, or can you do it within your spending
I
authority?
would think so.
Okay. All right. Does any other council member want to offer anything on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ms. McCoy.
Okay, so, say it's like, we're gonna spend an extra $7,000 or $8,000 to tell us basically what they told us before? Am I understanding that correctly? That we're gonna spend some extra money to basically tell us what they told us before?
We are going to attempt to address the assertion that what we did wasn't adequate.
Okay.
Which translates to yes. That's exactly what we're about to do.
Let me make this.
All right.
Okay, but when
Miss-
people, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. When people, that's just gonna contribute to the perception of this piece of property that the city has, that we just keep spending money, and then do nothing, and it's just a money pit. I'm just putting that, that's just a comment.
I got you. All right.
Yes.
Did you want to say?
Mayor, let me make sure, let me be clear here. I am not advocating what to do there. You cannot take that down fast enough for me. We own it, and it's the ugliest piece of blight in downtown. I'm not saying what we should do one way or another. I simply asked a question. Are the studies that we did adequate? If they were, then you should be able to look at the studies and tell me they're adequate. Is there no one on staff that can say, that can show it to, we have help at GMA, we have help, I'm sure, from EPD to some level, to look at our stuff and say, is this okay? But I'm not saying we should spend more money. I'm not saying we should answer everything that's out there on social media. I asked a question, are the studies we did adequate, that the property's clean and fine? And if they were, then we have that information on file, do we
All
not?
right. Mr.
I
Mecklen?
think I can answer that question, that the studies that are listed here were sufficient for the city to purchase the property at the time we purchased it. The environmental issues have never been raised as being a problem. The issues that raised that kept us from completing the project related to the structure itself, not any environmental questions. Those studies that are listed were sufficient for us to purchase the property. There's nothing contained in them that would keep us from doing whatever we need to do to take the next step, whether it's to sell it or turn it into a different city facility.
Without further studies,
Without-
there
I
are
don't
some
think-
assertions in here that there are environmental concerns, but a lot of these are just varying opinions that have been thrown out there that we didn't seek out, but now they're in the public record, and now it just throws more fodder on this perception that there was an environmental problem over there.
The people that we hired at the time, which were competent people that prepared those reports, said that there was nothing to keep us from purchasing the property. And if you read through them, there's nothing in there that
Yeah.
said that would be any limitation upon us to purchase the property.
Okay, so I don't,
One question.
all right, Mr. Carter.
Is there any reason why we can't go ahead and take the thing down and get rid of the material? And what's stopping us from doing that, even if the land needs some work after we take it down? Why can't we proceed with the tear down?
You can.
I say we do it. I don't know why we stop.
You good with that? Because somebody loaded all this up into the system here. All right, so there's nothing to do here. Let's just cross this one out. All right, Mr. Montahan has requested a discussion about the PTV ordinance. This is B7. Mr. Montahan.
Thought we'd never get here, Mayor.
Well, we're here.
Okay, so since the last council meeting, back in March, I've taken a second look at the statute that I understand governs the use of PTVs which I'm not entirely clear upon if that even includes golf carts. So this is a pretty muddled statute, and I haven't spent my hourly billable time really getting down into it. But I think there was some discussion at the last council meeting about whether or not the city had adequate signage or adequate processes and adequate procedures. And I wanted just to kind of make sure that while we do have this PTV ordinance on the books, that we are doing what we need to do to comply with it and state law. And I talked to the chief, and he said we do have an application process and decals and all that. I haven't seen them, though, but I take him for his word. But I think one thing that was mentioned was that there was not signage. And I wanted to bring this up at the council so we can give for what we currently have. This is not for anything additional for changing the speed limit or anything like that, but this is just for what we currently have in the city. Do we have the adequate signage, or are we otherwise complying with the state law, which is at OCGA 40-6-363 and subsequent? So that's what I wanted to bring up, and I guess maybe get some direction for staff to we have a sign shop now, I think, in the last year, so we should have the funds and the ability to create whatever signage and whatever compliance that we need to do for the statute and for our own ordinance.
Okay, so, and as you rightly point out, there is some, there is some definitions about golf carts and PTVs that are worth discussing at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're talking about is the requirements for the use that we already have authorized here, and which would include designated crossings, which include probably some type of striping there, chloroplast or coroplast or something along those lines, and signage. So what I think. So let me say that about the golf carts first. So there is a different definition of golf carts. Golf carts are actually, by definition, under state law, carts that are used to get to and from a golf course and on a golf course. So that's actually the law about what a golf cart is in the state of Georgia. As to crossings, designated crossings, the law requires that we designate crossings, and we would do that through some sort of an ordinance. And then I think we already have designated one or two in the city, but that's all. And then we would need proper markings on the streets and signage there. So I think what I think what you're asking for is for someone on staff to go through this ordinance and go through and make sure that we're meeting the minimum signage and designations as required by law, and come up with a plan for that and a cost for that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Essentially, whatever. We already have this ordinance on the books, and if we have an ordinance on the books and we're not fully complying with the state law that enables that ordinance, then I think that's a problem for the city to say that, we have this ordinance on the books, we permit this, but we don't have full compliance.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. Do we have someone, Tom, who on staff would you put on this? And I'll talk to council in just a second, but who would take that up? Would it be Bobby Elliott, who just threw his hand up? Is that who would do it?
We haven't talked about it. I haven't talked to Dave.
Who would it be, though?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I want you to get with the city attorney, and he will tell you what it takes to be compliant, and then you all will get with a plan and what it will cost and all that for the council. Now, does council have any comments? Anybody else want to make any comments on this before we move on? Okay, you got that, David and
Yeah,
Tom?
I do, and I just want to add in that what we don't have is a good PTV plan, which is what is required by the statute, and we need to expand on our plan. We've got the ordinance, but we don't have what's called the PTV plan, which is what roads are appropriate. Our signage is not satisfactory. There are a few signs stuck out, but they're not it's not really in compliance with what the state law requires. So we do need to do that, and I'll get with Tom and we'll figure out how to create a plan. I've looked over the PTV plans of a number of cities that I think we could model after that would be much better than what we've got.
Let me ask you, in the interest of just really sort of putting some boundaries on this, what time frame would you feel comfortable coming back to council with? Because if you don't do it in May, which something tells me it's not going to be May,
Yeah.
it's not going to be June, so July?
July would be a good time to
think-
give us 90 days to come up with a good plan and to have it ready to be implemented.
Okay, I think that sounds fair.
Interestingly enough, I'll throw this in very quickly.
Yes,
is
sir.
that while we've been sitting here today, there's been a discussion on the city attorney's listserv about PTV ordinances, and it addresses some of the issues that we addressed at our discussion before, and the general consensus is that you should not ever lift your speed limit to roads above 25 miles per hour, but you do need to have a better PTV plan than what we've got right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. What a coincidence, but I appreciate that. And, I would say that I've read through this ordinance. I said before, when we talked about it before, it's convoluted. It's a mess. I don't know how and I'm not blaming you, but it seems clear to me somebody wanted a golf cart plan and they put together whatever it was and just stamped it yes, and then nothing ever happened with it after that. That's what it feels like.
That's exactly what did happen.
That sounds exactly like what happened.
Oh,
All right. Yeah, Mr. Carter.
one question, is the golf cart not a PTV?
A golf cart is not a PTV. A golf cart, as the mayor said, can only be operated on a golf cart, on a golf course, or getting directly from your house to the golf course. A PTV is a different definition altogether.
Okay, what constitutes a PTV? I would like to know why. Sound like a golf cart is a personal transportation vehicle, so.
Not necessarily. And rather than me trying to quote it off the top of my head, I'll send you the two separate definitions of those two different animals.
Okay, that's good.
I have the code section pulled up, but I can't find the definitions though, David. That's the odd part to me.
They are in
The
there.
definitions are way back at the very beginning of the entire chapter.
Okay, in chapter 40.
When
yeah.
we took this up before, I read through all the statutes.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if they
Go
met
ahead.
with you, but I know the police department is also trying to work on something to work with us on this. I will say at the time that the ordinance was done, I was on council. I was fairly new. I'm trying to think the exact year we adopted it. But we did have a city attorney. We did have a city manager. We did have staff. So whatever was put together with the governing body, the city manager at that time, our city attorney and everything. So that's what was come up with. I will say that the state law, if I could make one request as we get information on this, the state law in sections that I was reading was using the terms golf cart and PTV interchangeably. Is that now right, Michael Young? So that adds to the confusion of what is a golf cart that can operate on a regular road. So the state themselves are not super clear, so it may not be just us, but when you do bring this to us, could we also see the sections of state law that are being referred to? So we're actually looking at the same thing together. That's it.
Okay. And yes, the police department, they have had some discussion with me about what they are working on. I think that they are trying their best to try to come up with something that is workable for everybody. Let me just to offer a little bit of defense for staff, and I want to remind everybody, you sit here today and you see this happen. You're often given information and you're told what you should do and what you shouldn't do in a very loose way. But what do they always say? You are the governing body, you decide. So even when we say, well, there was a city attorney back then, and I'm not picking on you, Mr. Person, but that happens, right? So yes, there probably was one, but at the end of the day, somebody overrode whatever that advice was. I can imagine Mr. Mecklin sat here and said, this ain't perfect, but it's up to you all. If you're gonna do it, then you're gonna do it. And that's exactly what happened, I'm pretty sure.
There was no override of advice.
So-
the buck stops here.
All right, let's move on. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to community development. Is Tracy Jarvis doing this? Item C1, ALP 1-2022 alcohol license permit application for Next Gen Nexus Inc. DBA Junior Food Store. There'll be a public hearing on this item tonight, so, all right, Ms. Nairi, come on up. I'm just gonna ask you to briefly introduce this item. I'll see if council has any questions, and if there are none, I'm gonna move it on to the tonight's agenda.
Okay. Nairi Simpson, licensed permanent specialist.
Pull that mic just a little bit.
Is that good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Actually, there's just a history of alcohol license at this location. So this is presented because it's a new owner, new change of ownership, basically.
Okay. All right, council, do you have any questions for Nairi? All right, there are no questions. There'll be a public hearing on this item tonight.
Okay.
Do you have another item?
I have what is it? 2 special use permits, event permits. For
All right, well, let me just go in order here.
Okay.
Maybe next time we'll try to line them up.
All right,
And
thank
let
you.
me get, I guess this is going to be Ron. C2 VA-02-22, Mirror Lake Boulevard at Shoreline Parkway, Townhome Variances request from PLG LLC. Within the Fuqua Development, there'll be a public hearing on this item tonight as well. But Ron, if you would just introduce it for us.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. This item is for 5 variances for a pod of the Fuqua Development. It's for a 255 unit townhome development. And they have 5 different variances that they're applying for. They have, let's see, the garage door issue with rear loaded. They're looking for a variance for that. The unit width going down from 24 to 22 feet. The 75-foot impervious buffer, they were looking for an encroachment of 42,883 square feet. In addition to an 11,052 square foot encroachment into the 50-foot non-disturbance buffer. And lastly, the landscape buffer yard requirements, they're looking for relief from providing the type 3 buffer yard, which is a 30-foot buffer requirement, and they want to just split that. Instead of doing 2 30s, they are looking to do a 15 and a 15 on each side of the SFA and the C2 boundaries.
Okay, so it looks like you went ahead and took up 2, 3, and 4 all at the same time. So let me see if council has any questions on 2, 3, and 4. I just wanted to make sure we all knew. He just did all 3 of them. So do you have any questions on these before I move these on to tonight's agenda? Okay, no questions. All right, thank you, Ron. We'll take these up in a public hearing tonight at 6 o'clock. All right, let's move on to C5. This is VA-05-22, 14911 Veterans Memorial Highway. This is a variance request from Larry Boggs. It also will have a public hearing tonight. This is, orient us where this is, Ron. This is on the other end of 78 on the Douglas County side, correct?
It is, yes.
All right, go ahead and introduce this item.
Sure. The applicant, Larry Boggs, is looking to, he's proposing a 20-foot side yard setback, whereas a 50-foot side yard setback is required in the I-2 zone. He's under construction right now on a building on the corner of Veterans Memorial and Boggs Road, and this would be the lot that would be to the south of that one. And he wants to put up an additional building. I believe it's 12,000 square feet. So he owns all of the land that's surrounding this area, and this is just essentially a development variance to try to make everything in his plan work for a 12,000 square foot building.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for Ron on this item?
Yeah, probably just.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
Thank you. Probably just some clarification, because we spent some time on the phone talking about these, and my concern as to whether to give a variance or not had to do with topography. I got a few different opinions, but specifically from you, you said there were some topography issues and that he owns. My concern is if we gave this variance, so if you would explain what those topography issues are, and then if we were to grant this variance, I wanted to know if it was going to infringe on someone else or cause a problem for another property owner and everything else, and you said that he owned all the property around it. So would you just kind of explain that a little bit to help us?
Absolutely, sure. And I'm just trying to get to my right page here. Okay. So According to the applicant, there is a creek, and it's in a floodplain, and there's a septic system that they're trying to plan around as well. And you can see that on the site plan drawings. I did check the national flood hazard layer from FEMA, and which is included on page 5 of the staff report. And a good portion of this property is located in a flood zone area, Zone A. So there are some credible topographic related issues to this. There's, in addition to that, I think some of them could have potentially been alleviated by having maybe a smaller building, but we're not really in the business of redesigning someone's site, right? We just have to accept what they accept, at least their request or their proposal, and see what we're going to do with it. But otherwise, he does own all the property surrounding it. There's no other neighbors. There was no one actually for me to even notice when I was sending, when we were doing notice for this application, since he owns all the property. But it is a pretty substantial reduction. They are proposing to keep the 50-foot buffer that is required on the northern property that he's already under construction on. But he's going to supplement the 50 on that side of the line with a 20 on the other side of the line. Otherwise, we would have 100 feet between the buildings, and he's proposing essentially 70 feet.
All right, any other questions?
Ron,
All right, Mr. Montahan.
So he is, so what prompted this was if he did not subdivide them, then he would not have a building line setback.
That's right. Yes, he did subdivide the property from what I understand. Bobby can correct me if I'm wrong. So he's basically taking in. There's actually was 3 different properties. One of them that he's taking in for the western part of the property that's to the south, the one that we're talking about. And then to the north as well, there was an additional 2 lots or so, or 1 or 2 lots. So he kind of reconfigured the entire area, and it's very similar to what we've seen actually even with the Fuqua application, where they're creating new boundaries, which has caused the need for variances from some of those items.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this is just essentially self-created.
But is he, I mean, did he explain what the purpose in subdividing the lots were? Is he going to sell them separately, or do we know?
He hasn't indicated.
Tracy, you're raising your hand back there.
So he's got this building, the first one he built, leased out, and then the second one, he's got a company that's wanting to come in also. And
Okay.
on this property, the purpose of doing this is, so he's going to share the detention ponds, all going to go in, and the septic tank issues, right? Shoving that building that way where they can get, environmental says they can get their septic tank down into here. But really, as far as from the building standpoint, you've still got your fire separation, 2 types of buildings, similar to each other. I mean, I see the hardship in it because there is no sewer there, and they do need to get septic tank into it.
Okay.
But he does have this, somebody interested in leasing this building also.
So that's the purpose of this subdividing, is because he's going to sell them. He's going to sell.
Right,
or
that
he
whole
sold one of
area
them, yeah.
was designed for this industrial in here, right?
Right,
Yes.
right. Okay,
Okay.
so,
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
go ahead. No.
So, in light of what Tracy pointed out, he said he does see a hardship there. I mean, Ron, what's your?
So there is a hardship, and there is considerable topographic related issues. I think from and as we know from my direction, I have to, typically when these variance applications come in, we would usually shift to, a denial from a staff recommendation point of view. I do see some merits and positivity in granting, the request in order to make the entirety of the surrounding properties also kind of work with that septic system, like Tracy was saying. And obviously there are some dry creek beds and some topographic issues that they're even showing here on the plan. So, there's some merits to this, but we do still have to stick to our city policy.
Do you know how large of a building? Does this work?
I think everything just went out.
I think so.
Is that mic out? Raise the mic up.
Okay.
Okay.
Please continue.
Do you know?
12,000 square feet. Yeah.
Right, but do you know, if we don't approve the variance, what would be the building? What size building could he build?
He hasn't indicated what
Okay.
he would do.
I guess we'll ask him tonight.
Yeah, he hasn't really
Okay.
given any direction on what his alternatives might be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Okay, but
All right, Mr. Carter.
make sure I understand. I think they all went out.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason that he's needing the variance is because he subdivided the properties. If he hadn't subdivided, he wouldn't be needing the variance. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for Ron? Okay, we'll take this up in a public hearing tonight, Ron. Is that your last item?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's go to C6, special event permit to allow West Georgia Tennis Club to hold a King of the Clay tournament. Miss Nairi, come on back up.
Okay. This request of this application is being made for West Georgia Tennis Club, which is stated to hold the King of the Clay tournament May 14th through 15th, and for Hickstown Brewery to provide the beer. Hickstown will be responsible for, if approved, for providing the beer and also the setup, and they will have their staff available.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Nairi on this item? All right, if there are no questions, so I cannot make this into a consent item because there is no motion on the cover sheet. So I know you're new.
Yes.
You'll need to put a Mr. Mansour, G. Sure, absolutely. Come on up. But anyway, Nairi, you'll need to create a motion on the cover sheet and bring
okay.
it back to us tonight, okay?
Okay.
6
I will.
o'clock. All right, Chief, you want to talk about this?
If this is like other events that we have in the city that alcohol is there, we usually require security there, officers there. And I don't know that we've had any contact on that, because I know usually when we have something in different areas and they have alcohol at that location, we usually have security.
Let me ask you a question. Nairi, is there a requirement for them to hire Villa Rica police officers for this event?
From my understanding of the ordinance, it was if they were,
Would you come up? Because I think what the chief's saying is accurate, and I would have thought that would have been done before this item came before us, but you may tell me something different.
From my understanding of the ordinance, the officers would be required if they were had street closings or what have you. This is going to be on that property, and Hickstown is licensed here in Villa Rica for alcohol sales and also to have their staff available.
All right.
And that's what they're having.
All right, let me ask the city attorney that question.
Right.
So, David, do you understand the question?
I do understand the question, and I believe the special events ordinance does have certain requirements. And I think one of those is that the police chief does have to sign off on the security arrangements for the event. So even if you approve the event itself, they still got to comply with the ordinance, which has some additional details that go beyond even what you'd be approving.
So, Chief, are you saying nobody's approached you on this yet? All right, so prepare the motion for tonight, and then you're still going to need to get with the chief, though, because they are still going to need to be in compliance with the ordinance. But I'll still entertain any questions from the council.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody? Okay, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, I remember dealing some with this when Chris was rewriting, we were talking about the downtown entertainment district and that sort of thing. And so with street closures, there's an issue. The only thing I'd hate to see us do on this is, does that mean if somebody, think about it, a special event, so because they're having beer, we have to make them have police. Does that mean, think about it, somebody's having a big picnic with their company and they're renting a facility, do they have to have police? And this is my concern. You've got to look at the cost. Sometimes people are putting on special events and that adds exponentially to their cost. And, do we have to justify that a private organization doing something on private property has to have our security? I just want us to be careful there, as comparison to a street event. city property, streets, and all that.
So
That was my understanding
Yeah.
too, but.
So
Chris
my
may know.
only point here in direction is that whatever the ordinance is,
Mhm.
that we follow it. And
Okay.
if you need to get with the chief, and you do,
Mhm.
then you do that. But bring this motion back to us tonight, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go on to number 7. And David, so right before this meeting started, Ron came up to me and told me that item 8 would need to be renoticed, that the proper notice had not been given when this was changed from the March agenda to April. Does that affect item number 7?
No.
Okay,
It does
so
not.
you do want to take up item number 7 now, but we will do 8 in May after it's been properly noticed. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, because number 8 is a change to the zoning ordinance, so there is a notice requirement for that. That's not true of number 7.
All right, yes, sir. So are you going to you want Ron to introduce? Oh, it's all about you. All right, amendment to the alcohol ordinance. Mr. Mecklin, go ahead.
I was asked to prepare an initial draft of an ordinance that would authorize the issuance of licenses for the package sale of liquor, distilled spirits, as it's properly defined under state law, which I have done. You have a copy of it before you. There's nothing magic about this. It is a public policy decision being made by the council to implement the approval by the voters of Villa Rica of the authorization of those licenses. Be
So-
happy to answer any questions you got.
So let me ask you, so we're going to discuss this in just a moment, for sure. Do we plan to offer this up for a vote tonight? And if we are, shouldn't we have a public hearing?
You are not required by law to have a public hearing.
Okay,
would
I intend
say-
to do
I would
one.
say that it's my opinion, as your city attorney, that it is enough public interest that I think it might be advisable to have a public hearing on it, just for the sake of letting anybody have their say about it if they want to.
Okay, and I agree with that. And so we will have a public hearing on this item tonight. So I'm going to open this up for each of these council members to have some discussion here in just a minute. And from that, I will ask you to make any necessary amendments, if that were to be the case, and prepare a cover sheet with a motion for tonight. So let me start with just who would like, does any council member want to start the discussion here on this particular ordinance? Anybody? So let me say that in the retreat, okay, give me just a sec. So let me just say that in the retreat back in January, the council did have a substantive conversation with the city attorney and offered up a number of guidelines that were agreed to in that retreat. And this ordinance is modeled after other ordinances and similar ordinances that our city attorney has drafted before. There are some tweaks, there are some changes here. They came out of that retreat. I don't know that anything is in here that wasn't discussed in that retreat. So some work and discussion has already gone into this. But let me start with Ms. McPherson. Go ahead.
Yeah, I delayed because I wanted, in case somebody else wanted to go ahead and speak first on it. We did talk about this initially in the retreat. It felt in a lot of ways over my head because in the sense of what we do here, what's our background and experience in figuring out how to institute package sales into city limits. So we do rely on the city attorney, maybe the experience of other cities and that sort of thing. Part of what seemed to be very clear that I think we all agree on is that we wanted to be careful, that we didn't want the city saturated with package stores. And we didn't want them, the easiest way I guess I can say is, we don't want them to look trashy. You know, we want them to be decent stores. So I think that's something we all agree on. And once we get past that, then we talk about what are we going to require. And so there's things that, such as the 6,000 minimum showroom, minimum 6,000 square feet, has to be a standalone building, has to be four-sided brick. There's an inventory, it was discussed 1 million, then it came down to an inventory of 750,000. Does that sound about right? Is what we would require. So I was also speaking to another council person in another city who has a similar ordinance and some of their experience with it. And just briefly, it's a very lucrative business. And I mean, I'm not in the business. I don't know how lucrative it is. But I'm learning because there's other cities that are already doing this. And so they were talking about even what their sales were on a monthly basis, and it can be as many as 320,000 liters a month, which in that particular city came out to 12 liters per person, which tells you it's not just the citizens, right? It's people from the county, other people are coming in to buy, and that with the four stores, that came out to, say, 320,000 liters. If they made $5 per profit per liter, it could come out to something along $1,600,000 divided by 4, which means every store was bringing in $400,000 a month profit on those liters. Now, that's not set in stone for everybody. That's not science where that's the way it works everywhere. But it helped me grasp why people are going to want to be in this lottery. So my only concern because we want it to be nice, we want it to be decent, we don't want the city saturated with them. What can we do that still allows the free market to operate? Because here's the thing that got me is only a rich person can do this, and we are going to allow 4 license holders to get a lot richer, and you have to be rich to even be in the market. You can't be a small business owner. And maybe the reason you can't be a small business owner is because you can't prove that you have enough money to have a nice place. I don't know. That's the conflict I'm having. When you look at the free market, who else do we do this to? Do we require that of doctor's offices? Do we require this of grocery stores, inventory, and then the enforcement of the inventory? So I'm just throwing these out for discussion. Are we going to have to hire somebody for that inventory, or should we not really worry about their inventory when we've already given them a limited square footage? Maybe they can actually figure out what their inventory should be, not us. I just feel like there's got to be a line where the government draws where we don't know what's best. And I want to be careful about us sticking in stuff, putting in regulations into things that we know nothing about. Limited knowledge, not nothing, limited knowledge. Maybe there's some compromise on, does it have to be 4-sided brick? Do you have to be wealthy to even be in this market? Just some things to consider.
Okay, did you have any items you would like to offer for amendment?
I would, if I were to consider a few, it would probably be some of the requirements we have on the building itself, the 4-sided brick. Does it have to be a limited 6,000 square feet? Can you get a decent facility that's not 6,000 square feet? And the inventory issue that we're going to require, how are we going to monitor that or enforce it? That we're telling them they have to have $750,000 worth of inventory.
Okay.
I just.
All right, Mr. Carter, do you have any comments or would you like to offer anything here?
Yeah, in this particular case, I think we're going for quality, and we don't want to lower our expectations. I would like to see quality stores when it comes to package stores. There's a good one over in Douglasville, Arbor Place Beverage Company on Douglas Boulevard. And then there's a cheap one up north on Highway 5, which is part of a little small outfit. And there's a big difference. And we don't want to lower our quality. I think we want to raise our quality in Villa Rica.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Montan, would you like to offer any comments or modifications?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, Ms. McCoy?
In response to the inventory, wouldn't that be done by the Beverage Council or whatever regulatory thing the state has for alcohol sales?
I think so. I mean, I've not ever had any experience in actually monitoring it, but I do believe that they are required to submit reports to the state that would list what their inventory is, and that's how we would monitor it, just by getting those records and looking at them.
Okay.
Okay, is that all, Ms. McCoy? All right, so, listen, I've been sympathetic, and I listened to Ms. McPherson as well, and I've always been, and I said in the retreat, I'm sympathetic to this idea that it's really difficult to get in this business. It's costly, and only some people are going to be able to meet these standards. But from my point of view, one, we talked about these in the retreat from the standpoint of wanting to have really a higher grade. We want to make sure that when we do this type of business, that we hold it to the highest standard possible. We talked about $1 million in inventory. We thought that might be a little too restrictive. We talked about the square footage of a building. We put that in at 6,000 square feet. At the end of the day, we talked about whether or not these buildings would have to be four-sided brick, well lit. We had a long discussion, frankly, about all the types of requirements. I personally don't feel like I want to lighten or lessen the restrictions that we've put in, but if, like, for example, if Ms. McPherson said, well, what if they were three-sided brick and maybe the backside was not visible from the road, in a condition like that, or if you just simply have some motion, or not really motion, but some idea that you'd like me to kind of poll, or have some discussion with each council member with, like, I would be happy to do that. But if not, I don't know that you feel that strongly about whether or not we do this four-sided brick and this $750,000 minimum inventory. So,
In a sense, I feel like we've kind of gotten a pull by sitting here and getting
In a way.
input at this point. It's just something I think we should wrestle with.
okay.
And where we draw the lines. To be honest, I could care less if there were package stores within the city limits at all.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But there's people that want that sort of thing, and we are doing it. So I thought if we're going to do it, we need to, just be careful.
Right, and I would remind everyone that this went before the voters, and it got 82% support. Is that correct? 78. Maybe it was on one side versus the other side, because when we look at these, we have to look at Douglas County numbers and then Carroll County numbers. So anyway, it's still a significant number, 78+% of people. So I think that question has been answered. It's how we implement it in a way that we think is responsible and does, the best for our city. So if I don't think there are any amendments, Mr. City Attorney. So if you would prepare a motion for that, I'll see you
I think I already
tonight.
included one in. I'll go back and look at it.
If you did, I don't think. Let me see if I can find it. Either way, I'm gonna take it up tonight because I want a public hearing. But let me just look.
Okay, I'll make sure we have.
Let's
one
just make sure
tonight.
we have it. I don't see it in my packet. So if
Mayor.
there is one, just make sure I have it. Okay.
Mayor.
So, yes, sir.
I don't see the four-sided brick requirement. Am I looking at the wrong? I'm looking at this modifications to the zoning ordinance.
That was the consensus in retreat, though.
Okay, I see it here on the actual ordinance,
Yeah,
okay.
it's on the ordinance. It's not on the zoning.
Okay.
Okay.
Page 37 and 38.
All right. So,
Okay.
and as I said earlier, item
Thank y'all.
C8 will need to be noticed, and we'll bring that back in May. Let's go ahead and move on to C9. Agan Development, City of Villa Rica, Mirror Lake Community Association Agreement. This is regarding the summer sport detention ponds. This has been an ongoing issue for some years. Who's doing this? Is this you, David?
I can. This was an agreement that I was asked to prepare to deal with an issue related to the detention ponds in the summer sport development. And it provides that Agan Development is going to deed over the detention ponds to the Mirror Lake Community Association. The city has been holding roughly $42,000 that we collected from the developer to maintain and to upgrade the detention ponds. So the agreement is that the detention ponds would be deeded to the community association. the city would give the Mirror Lake Community Association the money that we collected, and that the community association would then correct and maintain the detention ponds from here on out and own them forever.
Okay, all right. I'm glad we're finally at a resolution here. Council, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Macklin? All right, if there are none, is there any objection to making this consent number 4? I am 6 pages in and I only have consent number 4.
I have a,
All right,
can I
Ms.
ask a
McPherson?
question? Yeah, that area over there can never be developed. I did go over to look at it recently, and it, where the detention ponds, there we go. It's going to get worse later as we carry on. So it, you know how we usually require sidewalks when a developer comes in? And the only thing I'm concerned about over there is there's gaps in the sidewalks where these detention ponds are, but there's not going to be a developer coming in and putting in housing. Can the city help with the continuation of some of that? It's on city right-of-way. We do not put in enough sidewalks anymore in Villa Rica, and I know we've been talking about it a little bit with Punkintown, but so they're continuous. If a kid's on their bike, they're not then getting off and getting out into the road.
You have to tell me where.
Summersport.
I don't know it, so.
The detention ponds.
Nah, Bobby.
Summersport.
Bobby
So
knows
when you,
it.
well, hang on, so when you pass by Hawthorne, the very first entrance to the right, that is Summersport. If you continue down that, it's down on the right, it's a.
I don't think I've ever been
poorly
in there.
maintained. It's not even maintained.
When we calculated the, what it was going to take to repair those ponds, we did not figure the sidewalk across the frontage on either one of those. So we left that off. This whole thing, David pretty much explained it, but if you've read my narrative, the narrative in there is what I produced based on everything that I've been told back in the day when things happen. I could have gone up to $2,500 per lot on those remaining 42 lots that the builders came in. You know, after the downturn, the lots were platted. But when I calculated it, I settled at $1,000 a lot. So, but we did not include the sidewalks in that calculation.
Okay, so would this be addressed at a different time? Because that doesn't answer my question, so.
We could do it in a SPLOST project when we're doing sidewalks.
So
we haven't gotten through enough road that we've started doing sidewalks yet.
These areas that were skipped in Summersport, we have tons of other areas in town, in developments where sidewalks were put in, sidewalks weren't put in. So we've got other stuff to do as well as these two.
Right, okay, so we don't have to cover it with this. I just want an answer that, can we work with Mirror Lake or whatever on helping get those in?
Well,
It can be handled it sounds to me like it can be handled at another time with trying to work with a
Right.
SPLOST project, that we don't have to address it right this second with this.
Correct. I
Okay,
agree with
right.
that. But what I will say also, so yeah, it's wholly unrelated really, but what I would say also is South Harbor has not a single sidewalk in it. So it might be that some other folks want to have a conversation about where we put in sidewalks as well, which is also in Mirror Lake. So we have to prioritize when we put these things together. Your point's taken, though. I've seen that over there. Let's go to C10. This is an issuance of a temporary alcohol license to allow Uncorked on Main to provide wine and beer for the city's jazz festival. Is this you, Nairi?
It is.
Well, come on up. Let's do one more of these. Now, here you also don't have a motion.
Yes, I noticed that.
All right, so you'll be back tonight with this one and with a motion in there, okay?
Yes.
Present that for us.
Okay, basically, Uncorked on Main. They currently have, actually, I will be back in May for a motion to add to their current farm winery license. So they do have an alcohol license. They have presented with the state and license. What they will be adding to their city license is to sell beer and wine as well. And so they are requesting a temporary license in order to provide beer and wine for April 30th.
Okay. This is for the
Jazz Festival at the
though.
Mill.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, council, does anybody have any questions for Nairi? Okay. If there are no questions, again, I'm not going to put this on the consent because I need you to come back with a motion
Okay.
tonight.
All
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Let's go to Economic Development, D1, 2022 Community Grant Application for Alzheimer's Group of Carroll County. Ms. Chumley?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is a part of the community development grant that is offered through the city with a $20,000 budget. I have 3 of those to present to you. The first one is the 2022 application for the Alzheimer's Group of Carroll County. They're wanting to have a fundraising event at the Mill Saturday, October the 8th, 2022 from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. They are requesting $2,087.92 to hold their fundraising event at the Mill in October.
Go ahead. I'm going to let you go ahead and do all 3 of these.
Okay.
That way I can just get them. Go
Yes.
ahead.
The next one is for the Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace Festival, which was originally scheduled for Saturday, June 25th. They have added additional day recently for Friday, June 24th, to do gospel. And so they are asking $10,000 for the community development grant to be able to host this 2-day event.
Go ahead.
Okay. The next application is for the Villa Rica Lions Club to host the Taste of Villa Rica Saturday, October the 1st, 2022 at the Mill from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. They are requesting $7,375. And Mayor, the total for all 3 of these brings us at $19,662.92, which falls within the $20,000 budget.
Okay, all right. So we've got the Alzheimer's Group of Carroll County, $2,087 roughly. We got Thomas Dorsey Festival, $10,000, and the Villa Rica Lions Club for Taste of Villa Rica, $7,375.
Correct.
All right. Council, does anyone have any questions on these? Yes. All right, Ms. McPherson.
Okay, so the application is fairly extensive. This is a grant that was developed back a number of years ago. It's at $20,000 that the city does, and realize that this is taxpayer money, so it matters who it goes to, and that's why we have an application. They have to show, right, Janet, that it brings people downtown. You know
Yes.
that. And so my question is related to something in the application that says. It says that if they are requesting 100% of the funding to put on their event, that they are less likely to be improved. Now, understand that I belong to one of these groups that asked for this. So the reason I care about that is I don't want groups totally dependent on city taxpayer money to put on their event. I believe they should have skin in the game. And part of the reason I believe that is because we did have a massively failed event that we funded with the funds that were near the end of the year one time. And I mean, all those thousands of dollars are going to have a dozen people show up, which does nothing for downtown businesses. And that was one time. That has not been a pattern. So don't take that as an example of that's what's been going on. So that's my question. Amongst the groups, are any of them asking for 100%? And are we trying to make sure that we stand by that part of the application so that they have skin in the game? It's not just us totally funding their event.
I'm not sure they're asking for 100% of the money. I will say for the Alzheimer's Group out of Carroll County, this is their first time applying for this application. This is their first time putting on this event in Villa Rica. So I can't speak to a budget that was before or after that because I think this is the first time they're hosting this event for Villa Rica.
But their application has them have to list the cost of
Right.
everything.
Right.
So, and then it shows what we're going to give them. So we should know if we're giving them 100% of what it costs them to put on from the application, because they're supposed to list a budget with all their costs, because I looked through them. And the only other thing is that then we evaluate afterwards. So it's their first time. They're doing it. They're not going to know. they can't, they're even supposed to tell how many people can come. Your first event, you're not going to know if you're going to have 100 or 400, but we will evaluate it, because if it's poorly put on by them or it has very little turnout, that's not something we're going to want to fund in the future. So that's my thing, that they have skin in the game, as our application says, and that we're not totally funding them, and that they should be supplying that information because it's required by the application.
Understood.
All right, any other questions on any of these three grant applications? All right, Mr.
Mayor.
Moptan.
So for the one regarding the Lions Club, it does say Villa Rica Lions Club. However, it's both the Golden City Lions Club and the Villa Rica Lions Club, which are two distinct entities. I personally am a member of the Villa Rica Lions Club. So I'm not, again, I think I've asked this before, but just to reiterate, do I have to, this is probably a Mecklin question, and I think Councilwoman McPherson also,
Yeah,
she's on the Golden City Lions Club. So can we put this on the consent agenda, or do I need to abstain or recuse myself from the vote this evening? That's my question. Or do we need to
The way
abstain?
we've been doing it is you just don't object, and we put it on there, and then if you choose to abstain or, what do you want to do, Mr. Mayor?
I would say that, you know, if you don't object to it being placed on the consent agenda, that's all right to do that.
You want to take, I mean, we spent more time in this work session than I can remember doing, so let's just.
This is the first time.
Let's just do it up. Do you want to take a minute to talk about whether or not you have to abstain? There seems to be no direct issue here
Okay.
at all.
If we don't have to, then sure.
Every time.
I don't think you are required by law to abstain or recuse yourself. I think that you can, if it makes you uncomfortable to be voting on something for an organization that you're a participant in.
Okay, all right, that's.
It's a voluntary choice on
Mayor?
your part.
Yes, ma'am.
As opposed to funding a group that we don't belong to. So I don't think I have a problem with allowing it to go on consent, but to be transparent, I do belong to one of these groups, so for me to actually vote to fund their event, I feel a little bit of a conflict there. So if we had an actual vote, I would probably abstain. But in this case, I'm okay with it going on the consent agenda, because we're laying it right out here in the open, and we could abstain in a full vote, so.
Sure.
All right.
It's not a big deal to me,
Is there any objection to making D1 consent number 5? Is there any objection to making D2 consent number 6? Is there any objection to making D3 consent number 7? All right, thank you. Okay, so item D4, 2022 alcohol agreement with the meal. We're going to table this to May.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, right, okay. And let's move on to D5. Thank you, Janet. Atlanta Eats proposal, Villa Rica feature Sharon DuPont. Come on up here, Sharon. Introduce this item for us.
Okay. So I attend a lot of, tourism conferences, and one of the things that's been coming up for the past 3 or 4 years is digital content that's been moving to promote your travel destination. With the state tourism department still doing a lot of, reworking and reorganization, it's leaving to the smaller cities to do their own promotion. We've saved a lot of money with COVID. I guess the plus side to COVID is we saved a lot of money in our budget, and have the opportunity now to work with Atlanta Eats to promote Villa Rica. There will feature 3 of our unique restaurants. We would ask the mayor to be our ambassador for that day. Okay. Since you grew up in Villa Rica, you would go around with Stephen Steak Shapiro, and, just talk about Villa Rica, the history, show them around. And they would feature. In your package, you'll see the complete what we'll get out of the deal, but it's $109,000. It comes out of the CVB budget. The board already approved it to pay for it, so it doesn't come out of the city budget. It comes directly out of the CVB budget. But It's worth it. Janet and I talked about it. She's been in the industry, so I had her look at the deal. And I think it's gonna be really to take us over to the next level.
Okay, thank you. So on the cover sheet, I don't see the date for this. What is the date?
The date would depend on once we get approval.
Okay.
And then we'll
All
go
right,
back
I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a little typo on there. You got
Is
the
it?
agenda date as 3/28/21.
Oh, perfect.
But you have
Sorry.
the prepared date as 22.
Yeah.
So, all right, council, do you have any questions for Sharon on this item?
Just clarification.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
Clarify CVB, because I know a lot of people don't know what that means.
Convention and Visitors Bureau.
All right.
The Villa Rica Convention and Visitors Bureau.
And the budget is separate. Would that, from the city, say, the governing body budget?
Right.
So that would be
Hotel tax.
motel tax.
That has to be spent on tourism marketing by law.
And you saved money during that time because things weren't going on.
Right.
Is that right? Okay, thank you.
During COVID, no marketing. We saved a lot of money. Nobody.
All right, is there any other questions for Sharon? Is there any objection to making this consent number 8? All right, no objection.
All
All
right.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get together on that.
Okay,
that date.
awesome.
Thank you. All right, E1. E is human resources. 1 is increase in officer pay and retention bonus. Ms. Andrews.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. All right, so often Tom and I have conversations with the command staff about the difficulty of recruiting and retaining quality officers. A few months ago, they were sharing some of the advertisements they had seen from other agencies and just how far they are in pay from where we are. So Tom charged Hunter specifically, but also Chief, with making a presentation with a plan for what it would take to improve our recruitment and retention efforts for our officers. So in the last month, they have made that presentation to me, Tom, Jennifer, and to the council at various times. They presented a full package of pay and benefit items that we could use, again, to improve our recruitment and retention. And many of these we could address in the budget. However, one of the things they asked for was 10% pay increase now, and then another 10% in the budget. So what we are presenting today is a $2 per hour increase in pay and a $1 per hour retention bonus.
Okay. Now talk about the $1 per hour retention bonus real quick.
Sure. So obviously $2 per hour pay increase, and then a $1. What I mean by that, $1 per hour is the officers. A normal 40-hour a week person works 2,080 hours a year. So if that's the hours they work, then they would get a bonus for $2,080. But our officers, they work 86 hours per pay period, so they work 2,236 hours a year to that.
Okay. And the reason I wanted you to do that is because that's 2 different types of money. The $2 per hour pay increase is a permanent increase paid out of the general fund, and the $1 retention bonus per hour worked, annual hour worked, is paid out of one-time money, or can be paid out of one-time money. We're a little more flexible on that. Okay, so my understanding is the chief and maybe a captain or 2 or different ones have met, as Sarah said, with council members. So let's find out if any council members have any questions.
Yeah, I had one.
Mr. Carter.
You mentioned the captains and all, but I see the retention bonus applies to the chief as well. How many hours you can include for him?
So he works a 2080 year in theory. I'm sure he works more than that. But he's budgeted on a 2080 hours per year.
Okay, I also noticed in the format at the top, you officers from recruit to captain, but in the motion you said recruits to sergeants, and I think that should be captain, so I think your motion is not quite right.
Yeah, that was an error on my part. So we had discussions about going all the way to captain, then there were discussions about going to sergeant. So I just didn't make it the same in both places. So
So
my
that
apologies.
will be across the board for everybody. then?
So there's been various opinions about this. My thoughts are you set tone at the top, so I don't think we want to just stop at sergeant and disenfranchise our leadership. That's my thoughts, but.
So it was a mistake. It was supposed to include, because I thought it was odd that it didn't.
So we've had multiple conversations. There are different opinions about that, so it's up to the council.
So the motion that is prepared here, though, says the $2 per hour increase for pay recruit to sergeant, and then the $1 per hour annual retention bonus for recruits goes all the way to chief, and this was to be effective May 1. So when we first started looking at this, we looked at it from a standpoint of what the impact was going to be. So let's talk a little bit about what the impact is. What is the cost to do this?
Okay.
Right now, and then the permanent cost.
All right.
Because the right now is going to include the one-time money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if the pay increase went up to captain, let's say, then right now with tax it would be $87,000. Next year, when it's in the budget for 12 months, it would be $195,000.
Okay, so it's $87,000 for the rest of the year. That's the $2 increase. Does that include the $1?
That's just the $2 increase.
Right. What is the total?
The total between the two is 87 plus 107, so you're looking at $194,000 right now.
So $194,000 today. In next year's budget, you wouldn't have the $1, so that becomes another $195,000.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. Just making sure that, because that needs to be heard. So initially when we did this, when we first started talking about this, and look, there's a reason for us to do this. There's no question that we're having, and not just us, I mean, this is in agencies all around. We're having difficulty retaining, we're having difficulty attracting, and a lot of it does have to do with pay. In fact, a great deal does, because we're being poached by different agencies around. So the idea was to try to find a way to stem that in the middle of a budget cycle, because it seemed urgent to do that. So when we first started talking about it, my feeling was to get the certified officers up to the sergeant level, because that seemed to be where we were having critical losses. Later on, it became, well, what if we include the lieutenants and then the captains? And the more we started looking at it, it was, are we really needing to target that right now? But it seems to me that there is some belief here that if we don't go all the way, then somehow we're shortchanging somebody. When the whole idea was to do this to stop the critical loss that we're dealing with. But I think if you're going to change it to captains, it seems a little silly not to go all the way to the chief, because you're only leaving one soul out. So at this point, you know,
After all,
he
we have
did win Chief of the Year last year, and I am sitting up here thinking, if we're about to just leave one soul out, that doesn't make a whole lot of daggone sense.
Might hurt his feelings.
So maybe we would need to
No, you can sit
modify
there.
the motion,
You've heard
and
this
let's
before.
take it all the way to the chief level, unless there's some objection here.
I got no
All right,
objection.
can you
I
do
need to-
that? Because we're not gonna put it on the consent agenda, because we need to have the motion modified. Does anybody have any questions for Sarah?
Yes,
All right.
kind of. It's actually more of an explanation. Remember, Sarah, we did the salary studies, everything else to try to, because we had a couple different problems. We had people getting paid too little, even with surrounding counties. And number two, we had people underneath that were subordinate that were so close to the people that were supervising that we didn't have the, I don't know what you call that, differential between the pays. And so with the way I saw this $2 increase, and yes, I do agree, if we're going to do it, we should do it all the way to the top, is to keep that differential between the supervisor and those under them, which is part of the goal of the salary study. What I don't want to see us do is get into some type of bidding war with everyone else that needs police. And I've told the chief and Captain Etheridge this, or try to compete with cities or counties that don't watch their budgets at all and they can't pay for their budgets, and then they up their taxes 23% because they did stuff they couldn't afford. So I'm okay with us doing this increase. I just don't want to see us get into a bidding war or try to compete with cities like Peachtree City. You know, there's no comparison of the tax base there and here. Or compete with Atlanta and GBI. Working out here and the benefits we have out here and the cost of living out here and taxes compared to what's happening in Atlanta, plus we don't throw our officers under the bus. So it's a little different working here and working there. I don't want to compete with the city like that. But otherwise, I'm good, and I think we should give it to all so that we keep that differential.
All right, anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carter.
I just want to point out that we are already about 5 officers short, and that looks like it's going to increase substantially unless we do something about it. And we cannot afford to lose our safety officers. We need to keep our police on hand.
All right, anybody else?
I'll just add that, I'm sorry, but looking at the list here that's provided, you're looking at the proposal will bring us within range of Georgia State Patrol, just below Douglas County, and within range of Paulding County. So I think those are all pretty fair comparisons. So I totally agree with Councilwoman McPherson. I don't want to get into a bidding war. As a small business owner, I have a hesitancy also when I'm looking at how much I want to pay employees, that I don't want to get into a bidding war with other employers who may or may not have the same concerns as I do. But and I also don't want to get into a bidding war with local governments who are just not mindful of of how their taxes actually work out. But I look at our comparisons here: Georgia State Patrol, Paulding County. Those are I feel like we're right in the range, and I think it's fair. So.
Okay. All right, so make the change to the, anybody else? No, all right, make the change to the cover sheet, and we'll take that up tonight. Folks, we have gone way too long today. I mean, there is certainly the reality that everybody needs to be able to speak, but this is way too long. This is 3 hours. We're not even halfway through this agenda. So people have to get lunch. We've got to take a break. There is no way we're going to just keep right on going through this. I'm hypoglycemic. The city clerk needs to get some sugar. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to discuss whether we want to take a recess here and come back, or if we want to just close this thing out and take it up tonight at 6 o'clock. Anybody got any opinions on this? You want to take an hour and come back? Because the whole idea of these work sessions, folks, is to create a consent agenda and to move through this stuff expeditiously. It's not to take time to get every remark you've ever thought about out. We have got to get through these things and create a consent agenda, because otherwise we are wasting our time and everybody else's time.
Like I say,
Carter?
we do need to get through it. I'm for finishing this thing up and then going for lunch.
Well, there's no way. It's already 1 o'clock.
Mayor,
we're going to have to take it now. Yes, sir.
I would be okay with taking, so we're already looking, even this evening, we're looking at a long agenda because we have a lot of zoning and a lot of public hearings.
Yes,
so I think the best course, in my view, would be to take a lunch break and come back and reconvene. So that way we can at least eliminate the second half of this agenda via the consent agenda. And so we're not looking at a
30
marathon
minutes, 45,
this
an
evening.
hour. Anybody got any thoughts?
12:50 right now.
As long as it takes to
2 o'clock.
grab something to eat and get back, because most
All right,
of the
let's-
consent agenda items are
Let's
yet
come
to
back
come.
at 1.